Hello everybody, welcome to KTV elections coverage. This is the pre-show for candidate question time. If you saw a few seconds ago, we did try to start. We had some issues with the audio, some technical difficulties, but we're back now. We're here to talk about elections coverage, and what a fantastic election season it's set to be, right?
It should be very interesting. We've got quite a few, well, not quite a few, but we do have some rerunners, so it'll be interesting to see if they can bring something new to their campaigns and try and not maybe redo things. We've got a lot of people for student engagement, so that should be interesting to kind of see how they kind of debate out, really.
Yeah, 4 candidates is a lot. I mean, I think we had 6 maybe last year or the year before, which is really intense. But even with 4, it's tough to stand out from the crowd. As you know, I think you can see from the manifestos, there's a lot of similar points. Everyone has their own thing that makes them stand out. But there's a lot of crossover. So
a lot of crossover. A lot of mentions of Medway. That's always a common.
Which is good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to try and get that kind of inter-campus relationship back on. And yeah, so let's kind of dive into that.
Yeah, let's crack on.
So I thought it'd be quite funny to put down the hashtags.
Sure.
Because why not? It's always kind of funny. You always get the really weird ones. So first up is Adam Usman, and his hashtag is #Who's a Man? Use man.
That's very bold. It's very, very Kent Union elections, very student union elections.
Very
cringy hashtags, cringy videos.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the music videos because they are going to be
Oh, there's
intensely
always there's always music videos, dance videos, parodies. It'll be interesting.
Maybe one of these years somebody will learn how to use auto-tune and
hopefully
smash it out of the park.
Hopefully we'll see how that goes. So I don't want to talk for too long, but his points are mostly to try and get better collaboration between societies, easier access to support from the union for the activities groups, better access to funding, and safe and new sports facilities in Midway.
Sure, yeah. So moving on to Emily Window, again for student engagement, the current Vice President of Sports, so potentially got an advantage in that respect because people know who she is, what she's done, and she's made a lot of connections this year. She's very well known in the sports scene, so she knows exactly kind of what she's going for, and people can kind of, I guess they can assume that she knows what she can get done in the next year, which is a huge advantage for her.
No, definitely. I mean, her if you have a look at her manifesto, she's kind of put down the things that she's done already and how she kind of aims to continue with that. And one of them is the gym memberships.
Yes.
So that is quite a big point in her manifesto.
And it's something that the other candidates talk about quite a lot. They talk about reviewing the Kent Sport membership and kind of working to improve that. But what that really entails is continuing the work that Emily's done this year.
Exactly.
Whereas she's the one who knows what the process is. I think she's got the advantage, at least on that particular manifesto point, compared to anyone else.
Definitely. In terms of sports, because we've got to remember that student engagement is now a mishmash of sports and activities. So I'm interested to see how they try and collaborate the two aspects of it. So
yeah, it's going to be tough. I think being VP Sports and VP Activities was tough enough already, but whoever takes on the role in the coming year is going to have a tough time balancing out, I think, nearly 200 sports teams and societies combined.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to cover.
Yes, a lot to cover, and we shall definitely see what they have to say in their debates.
Yeah, so the next candidate for student engagement is Kirby Talines, and his main points are collaboration, again, it's a classic, getting sports teams and societies to work together. Connecting and bonding with between Kent Union staff and volunteers. Again, it's a very common theme we've seen over the last few years.
There's always.
And again, the kind of classic accessibility and support things that you see across all the manifestos, just making it easier for people to get involved with activities, with sports, and get around and kind of just get involved with all the stuff Kent Union has to offer.
Yeah, definitely. It's always kind of when you join uni, you're like, oh, the union, what is that? So I think it would be good to try and see how they aim to improve that sort of she with the union.
Sure.
And last but not least, we have KG, and her hashtag is #KickItWithKG. I liked this point of her manifesto. She's trying to get a Kent Union app. Yeah,
and that's interesting because I mean, I'm a computer science student, and I know apps are, for one, hard to build and hard to get right. So it's a tough point. If she could do it and nail it, it'd be fantastic. But I think it's going to be one of those things that might make it onto the back burner for a while because it's money and time.
Yes.
And it's probably not going to be the focus. But I think it'd be a cool idea.
Yeah. She also does focus on the environment quite a lot, so I quite like that aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll see what points that she has to say.
Yeah, so we've got some really strong candidates across the board, and it's pretty fantastic. And we're now going to cut to a short video about the amazing stuff and the manifestos that the candidates for student engagement and welfare have to show us.
I'm Adam and I'm running for student engagement. So my 3 manifesto points that are key to my campaign are better individual support for each student group, for a more streamlined funding applications because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks sometimes to get funding done at the minute, and also to make a better interface for the union so that societies, groups and individuals can actually understand what their group or the union's doing without having to go into the building every time.
Hi guys, I'm KG and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement for 2019. So I have 6 manifesto points, but my 3 main manifesto points are implementing a reward scheme for volunteers, ensuring that we're giving back to the student volunteers that work so hard to make our socks and sports teams successful, creating a Kent Union app so that we have a central place to highlight societies, sports teams, events, and things like that, as well as focusing on sustainability by getting rid of single-use plastics and working towards getting sustainable clothing in our SU outlets.
So my name's Emily Window and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement. My manifesto is centred around making student activities accessible, so continuing to work on the Kent Sport Gym membership price review, as well as creating a suitable sports provision in Medway, creating a Give It a Go programme for Canterbury students who don't want the commitment of being in a student group, developing a bigger societies varsity so we can continue to grow the event, bringing fundraising into the 21st century with contactless payment system, and finally helping student groups by creating a sustainable funding plan for expensive equipment.
Hello everyone, I'm Kirby and I'm running for your VP Student Engagement. So one thing I really want to do is do cross-collaboration between the Medway and Canterbury campus. So I want to do an inter-campus competition between the sports groups and societies. I also want us to improve the marketing that the societies are putting up for events. So I want us to do shout-outs on social media and ensure that they get the marketing that they deserve. I will also do improve the inclusivity and make sure that sports groups are able to get the memberships that they deserve.
Hi, I'm Emma and I'm running for Vice President for Welfare and Community. I plan on introducing greater education for healthier relationships on campus, as well as greater education on the effects social media can have on mental health and finding better ways to encourage better management of that. As well as that, I want greater union engagement with LGBT societies and BAME societies, greater engagement with Medway students on their campus, and a greener campus altogether. We have one earth, so I think we better.
Hi, my name is Omalade, your current Vice President of Welfare, and I'm running to be your next Vice President of Welfare and Community. So my top 3 manifesto points are working with local gambling charities in Kent to support students around counselling. Next is providing a toolkit for Medway and Canterbury students around their rights as tenants. And lastly, working with sexual health clinics in Canterbury and in Medway around advice and awareness. So yeah.
Okay, and welcome back. So you guys just had a look at pretty much all of the candidates for tonight, all the main points of their manifestos. So we've spoken about student engagement.
We have,
and now let's get into welfare and community. So unlike student engagement, there is only 2 candidates, and obviously we've got Omalade, who has already had some experience with the union, just like Emily has. So it'll be interesting to try and see, just like Emily, whether she's got any new or fresh ideas, or if she wants to kind of carry on with her work that she's already done.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how much of a tough battle it's going to be for Emma to kind of overcome the fact that Omalade has got experience in being part of the union, whereas, you know, Emma doesn't.
Yeah.
Emma hasn't had that before, but it might not set her back necessarily. Her manifesto points are strong, just like Omalade's are.
Yes.
So it's kind of going to be, hopefully, a fairly fair battle on the election campaign.
I think it will be. So I'm going to start off with Emma. Seeing as she's the newcomer, we'll give her that. Her hashtag is "I have a voice, I will be heard." Not cringy. I like it. It's very powerful. It's a strong way to start your manifesto.
Yeah, it's a very bold campaign, sort of slogan almost. I
really liked her. The whole education of relationships and things like that, because it's
something that doesn't get touched on very much. You don't see it very often, and it's something that you hear stories from friends about. You see your friends get into tough situations, and it is something that's super important. So it's nice to see someone addressing it on a formal level, hopefully.
Yes, because obviously we have a lot of that side of aspect when you're in school and things like that, you've got sex education and everything like that. But when you come to uni, I don't feel like you have as much kind of educational aspect to it. It's a really weird one.
Yeah,
I mean, you hear stories all the time, I'm sure, when you're walking around campus of girl trouble, boy troubles, but like there isn't anything actually to, like a formal advice or service, I feel.
Support, it's just it'd be nice to have.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice point.
She's also touched on things like LGBT plus and BAME support. So it's like she's tackling super important issues, and she's just offering to provide support to everyone, which is what you want. You want to support everyone and everywhere, which is tough to do, but it's nice that she wants to be ambitious and do that for everyone. And that is part of the remit of welfare and community. Yeah.
And then we've got Omalade. So do you want to...
So what's Omalade? So Omalade has, like we said, she's been part of the union for the whole year. As a vice president for welfare, she's got that experience in the union. She knows what she's doing. She knows what can be done, and she has a good idea of what she can get done in the future. So a couple of her things that I found quite interesting were that she wants to target gambling addiction and stuff like that, which is really unique. That's like an actual unique point. Students who have problems with gambling addiction and help them learn to manage their money better, which ties into one of our other points about money management and budgeting. Because again, that's another thing that you often hear students don't get the best education on, they don't get the best tips and tricks from the university. You kind of have to go elsewhere to find it. And it's super important. It's one of the things that students struggle with most, is managing their money, because a night out at venue can set you back quite a lot.
Yes.
So it's one of those things. Yeah, absolutely. Omalade is looking to tackle that. You know, she's also talking about a lot of just advice and support in general for like communities and students, and for commuting students as well. I think it's super cool.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
And so we're now going to go over to a video talking to the current union president, Aaron Thompson.
So the part-time officers are volunteers, and they are lead volunteers, and they're here to lead on things like liberation and section. So you have roles like BAME, disabled, LGBT+, and they're here to represent communities of people, galvanise them, understand what their issues are, and work with us as full-time officers in the union to actually work and campaign on their issues and hopefully get some change for those communities. So VP academic experience is similar to that of the current VP education, but following our democracy review this year, it means that they're going to focus more so on the undergraduate experience and focus on the reps within that. But the role will now not look at postgraduate reps and won't look at internationalisation, but that will go into the postgrad role. So it's kind of similar to what we currently have in the education portfolio, but with slightly less to kind of spread out the workload amongst everyone. So VP Postgraduate Experience is a new role this year. We recognise as a union that we need to do better on representing postgraduate students. So what that role will do will be kind of the lead full-time officer to work on issues that might include GTA funding and their experiences. It might be like welfare for them, it might be things around accommodation, but just general issues that postgrads face, not only PGT and PGR as well. So again, trying to increase the representation that we have for PGs and ensure that the union represents everyone. So we currently have a VP welfare, but I don't think that role kind of, or the name of the role encompasses everything that he does. So VP welfare, obviously looking at mental health and stuff like that, but community, that also includes the local community, but communities of people. So that would be kind of the lead officer for liberation, but also looking at the wider community, including the public. VP in student engagement, you could say it's the fun role. So looking at how we work with student groups, how we empower them and give them the best time at Kent, but also new to this role will be how we engage with our alumni and how we stay in contact with them and keep them involved in the work of the union, but also working on employability and just making sure that all our events are inclusive and best for our students here. Union President, my role, what does it do? Some say that it manages people, but it doesn't manage people at all. My role is to be more of an external face, work with local government, work with national government and the NUS, and also just to try and lead the team, lead the organisation, and be the chair of the Board of Trustees and help with strategy.
So, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that video from Aaron explaining a little bit about what the part-time and full-time officers do, and ahead of, past the new democracy review, changing what some of the roles' remits are and what they're responsible for. It's nice to see that, what everything's about and kind of how the union's going to run from here on forwards.
Yes, I agree. So let's jump back into student engagement. I'm really interested to kind of know what you think personally is maybe your favourite point from each person's manifesto, because everyone has their own ideas. So.
Yeah, this is true. We talk about let's talk about what it is for us, because obviously the whole point of student unions and the whole idea of student unions is they cover all the bases and they cover everything for everyone. Yeah. So let's start with Adam.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I think for me, the biggest point from Adam for me is the whole idea of streamlining the funding process, because that's one thing that sports and societies groups really have a problem with, is funding, like getting the money that they need. And obviously Kent Union can't provide hundreds of thousands of pounds to every group. It's just not possible. And it's how do they divvy that money up fairly? How do they split it up and provide everybody with the money that they need? So that's going to be a really cool point if you can pull that off and make sure that every society gets the money that they deserve and gets enough money to do what they want. That's going to be a big deal, because I know personally for me with the lacrosse team, our equipment is expensive and it's tough for us to always get the funding we need to cover the equipment and make sure that we can supply all of our first years and new players with the stuff they need. So I think that's a really cool thing for Adam to try and tackle. Yeah,
no, I like it. I was actually having a look at Emily Window's one, and obviously we know that she's already VP Sports, but I quite liked her idea of the activities without memberships. So I know that we've had the Let's Play one, and it's the whole kind of like give it a go, and it's nice because obviously during, when you start Freshers Week and everything, all the societies have a like a trial period. Yeah, sure. That's the word. And sometimes when you go to one of those, it can be really, really busy and you don't actually get the chance to kind of see the society how it really is, because everyone wants to try. So I like they give it a go, and it's nice to kind of do something a bit different once in a while. Yeah, so absolutely. I quite like
little tasters of what the societies are about, what the sports teams are about, to kind of get everybody involved and give you the chance to dip in and out as and when, and try the super fun bits without having to make a major commitment.
Exactly, that's it. And I think it will be interesting to see how she intends on doing that and like the whole organisation of it.
Yeah, like you said, it's like Kent Sports Let's Play programme where you get to go and try badminton or yoga or something just for one or two sessions in a certain period of time.
But with different, exactly, with different societies.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
Yeah. But,
so let's move on to Kirby. Now, I think my favourite point from Kirby's manifesto is, obviously he's touched on the stuff about negotiating with the Kent Sport memberships and following on from the work Emily does if he were to get in.
Yes.
But I think for me it's the connection idea and bonding with bonding between Kent Union staff and volunteers, because it is tough. There aren't loads of staff in Kent Union, but there are tons of volunteers. So they want it'd be an ideal if Kent Union and volunteers could really bond and just work together and just absolutely smash it out of the park. Because it would just make it easier for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And it would really improve the experience of everyone who does contribute to any society really or activity.
Yeah, and just quickly, I think KG's point on society participation in varsity is a really fantastic idea.
Yes, I'd be interested to see how you'd get loads of different societies to kind of compete against each other. That would be quite interesting to see.
That's going to be a really interesting thing.
Yeah, but we will be having a look at Aaron Thompson and the advice that he'd give the candidates. So let's have a look at that.
Candidates, election time is always stressful. It's always a lot of work, long nights, long days, but stay in there, don't give up. It'll be worth it in the end. And even if you don't win, the experience is amazing. So give your best and do your best for students.
Okay, welcome back. So that was some advice from the current Kent Union president on how to be a good candidate, I guess.
Yeah, and how to be a good candidate, how to smash it out of the park, and how to probably deal with elections week, because it is going to be tough campaigns week, both online and in person on the plaza, when they absolutely flood it with flyers. It's going to be intense, not only for the candidates, but for us as people walking past, trying to dodge getting 1,000,001 flyers.
Every year it's just, flyer, move. What happened to saving the environment?
This is true, and I was going to say that actually leading on to the Welfare and Community Manifestos, Emma Sampson actually got a lot of stuff about reducing the university's impact and in boosting our environmental standing.
Exactly.
And so I wonder if she's going to use paper flyers.
Yes, that's a very good point. I wonder how she's going to do it.
That's going to be an interesting thing to tackle. How do you do a sort of sustainable campaign when everybody around you is using flyers to get their message across? How do you beat them?
It will be interesting to see. You have to be very creative with that.
Yeah, she will have to be,
definitely.
but that's going to make her stand out from the crowd.
I mean, one of her points of trying to get a greener campus is working with the environmental societies. So whether that's Greenpeace, I'm not too sure what other environmental societies there are, but I'm sure there are some out there. But I quite like that idea. It's kind of like trying to involve not just her as a vice president to work on making the campus greener, but it's kind of including the societies on campus as well. And so I guess that kind of ties in with the whole Kent Union collaboration with students. So it's quite a good way of doing it. So I think I quite like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think my favourite point from Olade's manifesto, I think the one that stands out the most to me is the sort of the student housing stuff, like advice and support and guidance around student housing, because it is a massive deal. It's really hard to sort of separate the good from the bad in terms of lettings agencies, kind of find out what's the best deal for you and how you pay the least fees, how you don't have to pay huge deposits and huge admin fees, spend loads of money just trying to live and get a house. And that's super important. I think that's one thing I would definitely benefit from going on in future years, and I think every student's going to have
definitely.
some kickback from.
Yeah, obviously. A lot of us kind of have issues with that. But for now, we will be looking at how to vote.
Yeah, another video on how to vote in the upcoming election.
Yeah.
You can vote online or in the venue. So when voting opens, you can go onto our website, click vote, and vote for the people that you want. Or go into venue, there's some screens and some computers set up there. You can easily just vote there as well.
Okay, so that was our president again telling us how you can vote. That's a question that's on everyone's mind sometimes, because they're like, oh my God, how do you do that? It's not that hard. I have done it before.
Yeah, as a first year, it's something that's quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
And if you don't know much about the union, then the plaza is suddenly filled with people with flyers and leaflets and banners and T-shirts and all these crazy people trying to get you to sign on to their campaign when you don't even know that this is a thing as a first year. It can be quite tough. But I think voting is actually quite a simple process. You can do it online or in the venue, which is super convenient. So if you're walking past and you get caught up in the whole campaign type, you can just literally head straight into the venue with your student card. Usually get some sort of freebie.
I was going to say, I remember getting, I think like 2 or 3 lollipops last year. I was quite happy with that.
I think my first year of seeing it all, my first year, 3 years ago now, they were giving out free Nando's vouchers for people who voted.
Really?
So it was very specific. You got like certain things for at certain times of day, on certain days of the week. But it was cool. It was
better than lollipops.
It was something that makes you want to vote. And I remember last year there was popcorn and things like that. So it's one of those things where they will incentivise you to vote.
Yes, exactly.
But if you don't want to do that, you can do it online.
Just online,
through the Kent
in
Union
bed.
website. Yeah, literally from your bed on
you
the
don't
final
have to
day
move.
if you want to.
Exactly.
You can comfortably read on manifestos, watch all the cheesy videos, and then just click through your options online.
Yeah, it's not that hard to do. It's very simple. And also having everything online is nice, because if you've missed maybe this, or you've missed the flyering and you've managed to kind of walk around the tons of people that are already there, you can read everyone's manifestos, and they're actually up now online. So if you want to,
website.
Exactly.
So if you want to get a better sense than the summary we've given today, then you can absolutely head to the Kent Union website, pick up the full manifestos and see what every candidate's about, see in detail what they're about, and find out where to follow their social campaigns to catch those cheesy videos.
Yes. I think most of the candidates already have their Facebook pages.
Yes, they do.
So you can definitely have a look at that if you want to get, if you want to have a look at the cheesy videos as you were mentioning.
But for now, I think we're about ready to head over to candidate question time, which is going to be amazing. It's going to be a really exciting time. Over in Medway, they are hosting the whole candidate question time event. They're going to be talking to the candidates live and really getting a sense of what they're about. They're going to be finding questions at them, hopefully tough ones, to kind of give them a bit of a challenge, make sure they get challenged on those manifesto points, and give a clear sense of how they're going to tackle that. So I think we're pretty much ready to go over to candidate question time over in Medway with our remote team. So look forward to that.
Yeah.
and ensure the engagement within the university improves. So I have 6 points in my manifesto, and 3 of the key points that I have is collaboration, appreciation, and marketing. So collaboration, I want to encourage students to do inter-campus competitions. Appreciation, I want to show the students the recognition they deserve. And also marketing, I want to improve the marketing here in GK Union and ensure that they also get the support that they need. If you vote for me to be your VP Student Engagement, I will work hard to make a change and ensure that your voice is heard. Help me with my campaign and hashtag connect with Kirby.
Thank you, Kirby. Adam, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm also running for student engagement. At my time at Kent, I've been a part of quite a few societies and a couple of sports. I'm currently the president of the Scuba Society, and I work as vice chair on the SOC exec. I'm a third-year military history student, so quite a niche degree, but I've really enjoyed my time at Kent, mostly due to the union and stuff that I've done with it. So I'm looking to go into this role to encourage other students to really engage with the union and have a great time like I have.
Thank you, Adam. That was lovely. KG, your turn.
I am, like all of my other constituents, or candidates, I'm running to be your VP Student Engagement. I'm an international student from Canada, if you can already tell, and I'm in my final year studying law. I've always been that student, the one who's itching and excited to get involved with anything and everything, whether it be school pep rallies, proposing change on behalf of students, or organizing charity fundraisers. I've been part of it all. Coming to Kent, though, I didn't expect to get very involved with university life outside my degree. I wanted to get in and get out. And it's safe to say that didn't work. One thing led to another until I became in all of the extracurricular things Kent has to offer. Now I stand here today after being part of women's basketball, working with other sports teams and societies throughout my 3 years at Kent as one of your candidates for VP Student Engagement. Asking you to hashtag kick it with KG this election season.
Thank you, KG. And Emily, on to you.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight, whether you are organising or supporting this evening. So my name's Emily Window, and last year you elected me as your Vice President of Sports. This year I'm running to be your first Vice President of Student Engagement. So who is Emily Window? Basically, I studied ancient history with a year abroad in Canada last year. I played the clarinet since I was 9. I'm currently teaching myself guitar. Running is a big part of my life. I ran a half marathon in October. And during my time at Kent, I've been a part of a number of societies, such as Kent Dance, Music Society. I was also the publicity secretary for the trampolining team last year. This year, I've delivered on some huge projects, including finally reviewing the Kent Sport membership offering, where we got responses from over 2,500 students. We are finally close to getting new sports facilities actually on the Medway campus. And of course, we won varsity once again. If you re-elect me, I can guarantee you won't be disappointed, and I will deliver on those big things that we've been asking for years. In this new role of Vice President Student Engagement, I will be able to set the precedence of how this role represents students, so we need to ensure that we get it right. I'm confident that I'll be able to support all student groups and work towards strategic goals in order to improve the student experience for all at Kent. So I look forward to your questions, and I hope to show you how you can go to the window to the win next year if you vote for me in this year's leadership elections.
Brilliant. Thank you for your opening statements, guys. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to some questions in regards to your manifesto and the points you have made. So the first question is a general one to all of you, but because we started with Kirby, we'll go back round from Emily this way. Cool. So the first question is, so you have all stressed importance in your manifesto in regards to sporting activities, but how would you grasp the new role and balance between sports and student societies? So how would you ensure you would not be prioritising sport over the non-sporting societies? So Emily, do you want to take the lead?
Yeah, of course. So obviously this year as Vice President of Sports, I've built up a good rapport with sports teams. Not only that, even though my role has been focused on sports, I've still been proactive in engaging with societies and student media. So for example, we work really closely together during varsity. I've also worked with community action groups and helped to encourage collaboration between other student groups, despite my remit just being sports. So to answer your question more specifically, going into the role of VP engagement, I think that the network chairs will play a big part in this, and empowering those network chairs to run campaigns that will still encourage collaboration. And furthermore, building on from my tenure from this year, I feel like that would allow me to free up a lot more time to work with societies as well next year.
Okay, great. Katie, do you want to lead on from that?
Yeah, for sure. I think in my manifesto, I've been very open to doing both sport and societies as a priority for me, because I have two and two two that are focused on sports, two that are focused on societies, and then one that is Medway based, as well as one that focuses on the environment. So I've demonstrated that I understand that societies are an important part of this role, as well as throughout my time on women's basketball, I've worked hard to ensure that we reach out and we go past just being a sports team and working with societies to collaborate on fundraising events, as well as just going out and socializing with them as well. So I think that I've done that in my time here, and I'll bring that to the role because I have an understanding that both sports and societies are important parts of the Team Kent family.
So to address the question, I personally come from a society background instead of a sport, even though I plan to engage with all student groups, so community action, student media, society sports, and I aim to give them about an equal amount of time depending on the number of sports societies groups within that section. So my plan is basically just to give them an allocated amount of hours I'll work on their campaigns, their things a week, to ensure everyone gets a fair chance from their engagement officer.
Something that I've done this year is been part of both sports groups and societies, so I think that's also my advantage. And so something in my manifesto that I've done is made sure that I've covered both societies and sports groups, and ensuring that they get the equal opportunity and not one group is focused more than another. So I ensure that both I'm able to tackle issues that both societies and sports groups have, and I think that's one way that I'm going to tackle the idea of only focusing on one group.
Yeah, great, cool, amazing. So next question is, during your time as a University of Kent student, which campuses have you visited and why? So this is sort of like more of a Medway-based question in regards like what would you do for Medway students? Have you visited that campus? Sort of. Should we start with KG this time?
Sure. I've visited both campuses, and I think that although I haven't visited Medway as much as obviously being a Canterbury student, I've been on the Canterbury campus. I do think I have a general understanding on the issues facing Medway students, like the lack of suitable sporting facilities, as well as ethnic groups wanting more cultural events and wanting more academic opportunities for them. So I think that even though I am a Canterbury student, coming to Medway has opened my eyes, and meeting Medway students, I've had insight into their issues that they're facing. Yeah.
Yep, Adam, should we go around this way?
So I've been mostly at the Canterbury campus, but for the last semester I've been down here in Medway on a Monday due to my course. So I've kind of experienced firsthand some of the lacking facilities that are here. Obviously, we do have other campuses at Kent. I haven't visited them because they're abroad. But if I do get voted into role, hopefully I'll get to see what they're like and what we can do there. Yeah, so going ahead, I just plan on creating better sports facilities at Medway primarily, because the state of the current sports hall is not suitable for purpose, in my opinion. It's also quite unsafe. But yeah, I plan to just increase sports facilities and make it easier for people to train and do the clubs and stuff they love to do.
Yeah, and Kirby?
So being a Medway student, I've experienced like the difficulties that we've had here at GK Union. So I actually met up with some of the GK Union staff to see what issues that are able to be fixed within the Medway campus. So one thing that was brought up was the sports facilities here in the Medway campus, and they're currently working towards getting opening up more facilities so that students are able to more sports groups are able to have more access to more rooms. And that's something that I really want to work to. And I also want to improve the marketing here in GK Unions so that maybe through the Kent Union website, we're able to promote what events are also on this campus. And that's one way I'm going to tackle the issue of getting students engaged on the Medway campus.
Okay, yep. And Emily, do you want to And the
Can you
question?
just repeat the question?
Yes, of course. So it was, during your time at the University of Kent, which campus have you visited and why? What would you do for Medway students?
Okay, cool. So as a student, as a Canterbury student, I didn't really have much engagement with the Medway campus. However, being a full-time officer this year, that has naturally increased as we represent both students at both Medway and Canterbury. What I've learnt the most is that it's important not to try and just create the Kent experience at Medway. Medway is its own campus. Students have their own affiliation to this campus and GK Union. So it's imperative that we create the best student experience for them. One way that we do that is through the Students at Medway Committee. So we have a president that represents Kent and one that represents Greenwich students, and they work together as a representative body. So I guess moving forward next year, one of my priorities would be to work with Sam Moore, so Students at Medway Moore, to represent students in the same way that I'd be working with network chairs, and then empowering those student volunteers to make real changes on campus, including the Medway Sports Provision, which is on my manifesto.
Okay, cool. Just want to apologise for any of the technical delays that you may be experiencing, but we're just going to have to ask Kirby to read out your opening statement again because it cut out halfway through. I'd like to apologise, but yeah, if you would be able to, that'd be great. We just have a little moment. Sorry, guys.
So, hello everyone, I'm Kirby. I'm a third year music technology student. My time here at uni has been amazing. I've had many opportunities, including getting an internship with employability points and being part of societies, sports clubs, and also student media. My experience with these groups have been great, and I can happily say that I found my home. My experience is something that I want to share, and I want to encourage students to take advantage of the opportunities available and ensure the engagement within the university is improved. I have 6 points within my manifesto, and the three points that I'd love to tackle is collaboration, appreciation, and marketing. So collaboration, I'd love to introduce an inter-campus competition and encourage Medway and Canterbury societies and sports groups to collaborate with one another. I'd also love to show appreciation for all our volunteers here at the university, and I've also loved to improve the marketing that we have here at GK Union. If you vote me to be your VP Student Engagement, I will work hard to make a change and ensure that your voice is heard. Help me with my campaign and hashtag connect with Kirby.
Okay, thank you for that. Apologise again for the cutout and technical difficulties we've had. Well, shall move on with the questions. So the next one is, obviously the role is called student engagement. So student engagement within Kent Union, student engagement with Kent Union is often incredibly low. So what would you guys do to maximise student engagement to ensure Kent Union represents and reaches as many students as possible? Adam, if we start with you on this one?
So one of my main manifesto points is the engagement. So my plan is there's a couple of points I want to do. So the first is to create a Kent Union app so that students can understand what the union's doing and see what groups they're in and stuff like that, what's going on. Because currently
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Candidate Question Time broadcast with Kent Television. As you can probably tell, we're currently experiencing a few technical difficulties, so do bear with us, and we will be back with Medway very, very soon for our Candidate Question Time and debates and chats. So if you've been watching the broadcast already, we've already been chatting through some of our candidates this year. It's really interesting. If you haven't ever watched elections before or been involved in elections before and this is your first year, then make sure that you maybe take a look at previous years and see how it works. It's really important with elections to engage with everything that we do. The medias allow you to access all the manifestos and all the coverage for elections if you're not able to be here or if for whatever reason you've missed something. What's really good with elections is that it's your opportunity to have your say on how Kent Union is run. So Kent Union, pretty much, it's the one time a year you get to vote and you get to elect who represents you for the entire next academic year. So it's really important that you do vote. And if you are a second or a third year student or a postgrad and you've seen Kent Union elections before and you've never voted, then maybe consider having a look this year and voting. Because it's really important. If you're watching now, we're actually going to go back over to Medway and we're going to have a little look. Actually, never mind. We are going to have a look at some of the manifestos that are coming up. So please do stick around and keep watching.
I'm Adam, and I'm running for student engagement. So my 3 manifesto points that are key to my campaign are better individual support for each student group, for a more streamlined funding applications, because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks sometimes to get funding done at the minute, and also to make a better interface for the union so that societies, groups and individuals can actually understand what their group or the union's doing without having to go into building every time.
Hi guys, I'm KG and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement for 2019. So I have 6 manifesto points, but my 3 main manifesto points are implementing a reward scheme for volunteers, ensuring that we're giving back to the student volunteers that work so hard to make our socks and sports teams successful, creating a Kent Union app so that we have a central place to highlight societies, sports teams, events, and things like that, as well as focusing on sustainability by getting rid of single-use plastics and working towards getting sustainable clothing in our SU outlets.
So my name's Emily Window and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement. My manifesto is centred around making student activities accessible, so continuing to work on the Kent Sport Gym membership price review, as well as creating a suitable sports provision in Medway, creating a Give It a Go programme for Canterbury students who don't want the commitment of being in a student group, developing a bigger societies varsity so we can continue to grow the event, bringing fundraising into the 21st century with contactless payment system, and finally helping student groups by creating a sustainable funding plan for expensive equipment.
Hello everyone, I'm Kavi and I'm running for your VP Student Engagement. So one thing I really want to do is do cross-collaboration between the Medway and Canterbury campus. So I want to do an inter-campus competition between the sports groups and societies. I also want us to improve the marketing that the societies are putting up for events. So I want us to do shout-outs on social media and ensure that they get the marketing that they deserve. I will also do improve the inclusivity and make sure that sports groups are able to get the memberships that they deserve.
Hi, I'm Emma and I'm running for Vice President for Welfare and Community. I plan on introducing greater education for healthier relationships on campus, as well as greater education on the effects social media can have on mental health and finding better ways to encourage better management of that. As well as that, I want greater union engagement with LGBT societies and BAME societies, greater engagement with Medway students on their campus, and a greener campus altogether. We have one Earth, so I think we better.
Hi, my name is Omalade, your current Vice President of Welfare, and I'm running to be your next Vice President of Welfare and Community. So my top 3 manifesto points are working with local gambling charities in Kent to support students around counselling. Next is providing a toolkit for Medway and Canterbury students around their rights as tenants. And lastly, working with sexual health clinics in Canterbury and in Medway around advice and awareness. So yeah.
And we're back with the candidates for student engagement. So we just left off on a question, but there was some slight technical issues, which we've hopefully resolved now. So we're just going to have to ask the candidates who already gave answers to re-give answers again. So apologies. We'll just start as if it's a fresh question. Okay, so student engagement with Kent Union is often incredibly low. What would you do to maximise student engagement to ensure Kent Union represents and reaches as many students as possible? So yeah, Adam, do you want to start?
So my plan to increase student engagement is the creation of an app so that students can engage with the union more directly, because currently the website I don't believe is completely fit for purpose. And in this app, I plan to make it so that the campaigns of the union that are going on can be seen alongside your student groups that you're a part of. So updates from there can be made. So kind of incorporating the student activities area of the student union website alongside other new features. Alongside that, I plan to review the sum system so that when you're paying for a trip or joining a society, it's a lot easier to join. So to make it categorized by sport, society, stuff like that. And then also further categorize it by the individual sport and societies and student groups. That way, instead of a number of codes and stuff that's currently there, you can actually go through and say, yeah, I need to go to this society, this product, and then it's a lot easier for the staff, and you don't spend half an hour in there sometimes trying to buy a product. So that's how I plan on engaging with more students with the union.
Okay, great. And Kirby, on to you.
So one way that I want to tackle the lack of engagement within the university is through improving the streamline of the Kent Union website and ensure that it's a lot more easier to navigate around the Kent Union website. I also want to improve the accessibility, so through the use of technology. So there's a software called Otter AI, and it allows people with those with hard of hearing are able to be more included within the events that Kent Union have on offer. So what Otter AI does, it captures the voice of a speaker, for example, and then what's ever been said will be captionized, be put in a caption, and then this will be able to be projected onto a screen so that they could be able to read what's being said. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Emily, on to you.
So if it's okay, I'm just going to sort of tackle this in 3 parts. So the first part was sort of just actually for Adam to maybe elaborate a bit more about the app. I feel like it would be quite difficult for an officer to implement an app, especially if our year in office is only 1 year, how you think that would be possible, and whether you've done any research, if you know if any other unions use apps, and to what extent they are successful. Because if it's a website engagement we're struggling with, would an app pose the same problems? And then, sorry, to answer it just in the other 2 sections. So the priority for this year's officer team has been student engagement. I've tried to tackle this in a number of ways. So I've built relationships with a lot of clubs, either sports clubs, as well as community action groups, who I've worked closely with this year, as well as student media. And then, so I guess, just conclude that part, it would be to expand the work that I've done to societies more as VP engagement. And then to answer that in the third part, it's a question of really how do you engage the unengaged? It seems like an unanswerable question. I'm currently working on that this year in sports with Kent Sport. In the sports strategy, we are aiming to have every student active at Kent by 2025. And a large part of that is answering the question, how do we get the people who are unengaged to be engaged? And one thing that I have on my manifesto is the Give It a Go activities. So this will hopefully act as a safety net for students who don't want the commitment of being in a student group, but still have the option to join in activities and engage with the union in other ways.
Okay, that's great. KG, on to you.
So on my manifesto, I've also written that I would like to develop an app, and obviously learning more about doing that and things like that, that might not be possible in my year in office. But at the core of that app is trying to streamline the information that Kent Union gives out to students, creating a calendar on the website that puts up the events, the sports games that are happening on campus so that students have one place that they can go to and it's not super confusing, as well as improving the listing system that we have for our SOCs and our societies and our community action groups and our student media that we have, because we have a lot of societies and they don't always get seen. As well as, in the same vein with that, I want to create a volunteer reward scheme for our community action groups and all of our student volunteers, and that will encourage students to get involved because they will be giving something and they will be getting something out of it, which I think a lot of students would be interested in. And that could be a one-off thing if they volunteer for one event, or they could do that over and over again throughout the month. And in line with that would be volunteer appreciation things, shout outs on social media, things like that, in order to appreciate our volunteers year round so that we can improve our engagement.
Okay, great. As you've mentioned fundraising, we have a question for that also. Inquire provided you with a poll which you all answered, and we would like to provide you with the opportunity to explain your answers. So one of the polls was if student groups should fundraise for themselves and not for charity. KG and Kirby, you disagreed, while Adam, you remained impartial, and Emily, you agreed. We want to know why this is. So who would like to jump in first? Yeah, sure.
So just to summarise that, the question was asking whether student groups should fundraise for themselves or for charity. I put agree. However, I don't think that it is an either-or situation. Student groups shouldn't just fundraise for charity, or they shouldn't just be able to fundraise for themselves. The reason why I put agree is because for some of our student groups, they need to buy expensive equipment. And at the moment, the way that fundraising is set out for student groups, they have to give a certain portion of that fundraising total to charity. That can put a lot of student groups off of fundraising, particularly if they are fundraising for expensive equipment. So that immediately acts as a barrier. So I feel like if student groups were able to fundraise for themselves, it would encourage them to raise more money. However, with that being said, I don't think that it should be a case of they should only fundraise for themselves. I think that if student groups do want to fundraise for themselves, they should be able to do so throughout the year. However, they must also fundraise for charity. So in short, it shouldn't be an either or, but I agree in that student groups should have the ability, to some extent, to fundraise for themselves.
Okay. KG, as you disagree with the statement, we'll definitely hear from you next, because it'll be an interesting coinciding point.
The reason I put disagree is because I read the question as being either or, and I think that sports societies especially, and a lot of our societies have big numbers, and I believe that a lot of those platforms could be used in order to fundraise for charity. And that being said, being part of a smaller society, fundraising has been an issue in the past, and I would like to rethink and rework the way that fundraising works in Kent Union if I were to get elected, because the 60% threshold for donating to charities is high, and especially if you're a smaller society and you don't have a giant reach, it can be hard to watch what you're doing not go to waste, but it would discourage students from fundraising in that way. Yeah, so that's why I put disagree, because I think that it's important to give back, but I also would like to rework the way that fundraising works at Kent Union.
Okay. Kirby, as you also disagreed, we'll hear from you next to see what you have to say. Sorry? Oh, yes, of course I can. So in the poll that Inquire asked you, one of the questions was student groups should fundraise for themselves and not for charity, and you put that you disagree.
I also thought that, from reading that poll, I thought that fundraising should be something that should be encouraged as well between sports groups and societies. I feel that you gain something from doing this, such as collaboration, and reaching a common goal is something that's something that they could take away and feel proud of doing. I also feel that it also brings awareness to certain causes, and yeah, that's why I feel like I disagreed with it. So.
And Adam, you were neutral, so it'd be interesting to hear from you.
I remained neutral because I believe different societies and sports student groups have different reasons for being around. For example, RAG, their whole idea is to raise money for charity. So obviously they're going to want to raise money for charity, either through doing their treks or fundraising in the plaza, whereas small societies like mine, which is Scuba, If we were to raise money for charity, it means we would not be able to potentially do a lot of the work we do. So we do charity work ourselves. We do litter clean, rubbish pickup along the front of the sea. But if we had to fundraise money to do that each time, we wouldn't be able to have the equipment to actually go and do that itself. So I would decide to remain impartial. I think each group should have their own choice in the matter on doing that.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to ask some individual questions now to the candidates also. So Emily, if we start with you, we just want you to elaborate on your contactless payment system. And we want to know, is this the same as your online banking policy from last year, or is it different?
Sorry, can you just repeat that?
Yeah. So we want you to elaborate on your contactless payment systems in your manifesto, and we want to know if it's the same as your online banking policy from last year and how it differentiates.
So in my manifesto, I said that I want to bring fundraising into the 21st century with a contactless payment system. What that would look to do is basically to work with external companies, so such as Liberty Pay or Goodbox, who provide contactless payment boxes for the purpose of fundraising. So this would mean for campaigns such as Movember that we do, or whether it's RAG fundraising on the plaza, groups fundraising for their jailbreaks, it means that students will have the opportunity to donate via card, because we are seeing more and more that people do not carry cash with them. So it's about providing flexibility in the way that students are able to fundraise. And then to answer the second part of your question, that is not the same as online banking. That referred to the way that student groups run in terms of their finances and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're going to Adam then. So considering your stance on the student engagement role last year, why have you chosen to run for the role? We want to know if you're publicly against it still.
I did have it wasn't pro for the role being combined between societies, between VP activities, VP sport. It was mostly because of the creation of the post-grad role, because of the friends I have in the KGSA, and they didn't agree with it either. But I didn't agree with it because I thought potentially it could lead to sports dominating societies instead, and societies and other groups not getting the focus they could have. So that's why I decided to run, because I thought I'd bring an equal opportunity, and I wouldn't focus on sports, I wouldn't focus on societies. I'd give an all-round view to everyone.
Okay. Kirby, question for you in regards to your Medway manifesto point. So you talked about how the Medway shuttle buses and getting more buses to go to Medway events. But however, they recently did a Medway bus shuttle survey and implemented the changes. Do you still think that there's changes to be made even after this survey's been taken into account?
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you. Sorry. The survey is something that I've was also a part of and filled out. But there are some changes that I wish that they've made. For example, the only times that the bus times changed was the 7:45, which got moved to 7:35. So I think still encouraging another survey so that people could still get to this is more about lectures and also getting to society events. And for example, if we were able to move the times of the shuttle bus just to 15 minutes earlier, then it will give us enough time for people to reach their destinations a lot earlier. So I also wanted to encourage students to also attend events that are held on other campuses. So I would work with Kings Ferry to find a way that is able for a lot more students, because I know there are limited seatings. So work with Kings Ferry and find a way that we're able to implement like another coach that is able to take students from Canterbury to Medway or vice versa. And this will encourage people to attend each other's events.
Okay, cool. KG, a question for you. You talked about in your manifesto creating more Medway-based societies. We wanted to know, isn't this going to create more of a divide between Medway and Kent?
I don't think it will create more of a divide. I don't see Medway and Canterbury being divided. I just think that there's a lack of awareness of what Medway needs. And because we are two different campuses and we have two different needs, I believe that we should be able to create more Medway-based societies so that students are able to actively engage in them because they're close to home.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep, great. So, Kirby, another question for you. You talk a lot about well-being within your manifesto, but it's quite vague, so we want to kind of hammer in on the points of how are you going to promote well-being?
So I mentioned one software that I did mention was Otter AI,
Yes.
and that's the one software that I think that is easily be able to incorporate within the events here in the university. So it's a free software at the moment, so you can use so it's not going to charge the union any money. So just by introducing and incorporating it within the events, this is one way that we're able to improve accessibility, so students don't feel like they can't be included in events. And yeah, that's what the use of technology such as Otter AI is able to make more people feel more inclusive.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Great. So, Emily, another question for you. In regards to your Kent Sport membership reviews, how do you plan to continue this in the future?
Okay. Just to give some context, the Kent Sport membership price review is something that students have been unhappy with for a long time. Their membership is not fit for purpose currently. It doesn't provide students with flexibility in how they pay. And also there's a lot of complaints that it is a huge barrier for students who want to get involved in a sports team but can't afford it. So this year, my number one priority has been to review the gym membership offering at Kent Sport. We did that through working with Kent Sport and an external consultant to survey students on what they think about the current offering and also what they'd like to see implemented. I managed to get 2,501 survey responses, which is incredible for any survey that we do to students. So it really shows that students are behind it. Moving forward, I had the report come in from the external consultant yesterday. It's 38 pages long, and the presentation is 55 pages long, so I've got some reading to do basically this week, which is going to be fun.
Could you wrap it up?
Oh, sorry, yes. So anyway, working with Kent Sport, we're going to be listening to what students have to say based on the survey and the focus groups. We're going to be looking at budgets for future years and just basically listening to the student voice, and it's really positive that Kent Sport and Kent Union are working together on this.
Thank you. Lots of words in there. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, cool. Adam, another question for you. So you've said in your manifesto that a lot of your points are I will work with. How come your point about planning trips and events with the full-time Kent Union staff, it's an I aim point?
So basically, I put I aim on that one because I understand it takes a while to put systems in place. And I feel like in the planning of a trip, most societies only do a major trip once a year. So it will take more than 1 year to bring about new change because you'd have to do a demo year, you'd have to test it. So it'd take more than 1 year. So if I was to win, I would start implementing it. And if I was to win again, potentially if I ran again, then I'd carry it on. But hopefully whoever would succeed me if I did win and implemented this policy would continue my campaign for it. And I just feel like it's a policy that will require maybe a full-time member of staff to maybe help or more one-on-one based contact when planning trips. Because societies currently face a lot of problems. I spent, I think, about 40, 50 hours planning my last trip, and the trip beforehand was a lot longer. So, yeah, I just think needs more support for societies when they're planning trips.
Okay. Great, brilliant. Final question, this one goes to KG. So a lot of your policies will involve a lot of funding. How are you going to achieve this? Are you planning on making cuts to other things that involve funding?
A lot of my manifesto points do require funding, but I think that they would be worth the money for them. And I don't believe that they will cost that much. Like getting more societies in Medway would just take my manpower to come here and build workshops, increasing inclusivity within Team Kent, focusing on mature students, post-grads, part-time students. That would just mean that we had an access hour during Welcome Back Fair, things like that. Cutting back on single-use plastics will save us money in the long run. So while they will take maybe a little bit of money at the start, they will be worth it in the end, and they won't cost as much in the end. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. So we're going to move on to the closing statements now. Thank you for answering all the questions, guys. So if we start with Emily this time, then move around this way.
Okay. So thank you to everyone who's organised and supported this evening, so KTV, Inquire, as well as GK Union and Kent Union staff, and to the other candidates for their contributions this evening. To summarise why I think students should vote for me in just 3 words about myself, it's because I'm passionate, persistent and positive. I've had a really successful year as Vice President of Sports. I've taken the lead on huge campaigns such as the Gym Membership Price Review and made big progress in ensuring the student voice is heard on this. We cannot afford for this work to be dropped or deprioritised next year. I've supported liberation campaigns, and inclusivity has been at the forefront of my priorities by supporting LGBT+ History Month within Varsity in order to encourage all students to become active allies, as well as facilitating a transgender-friendly swimming session in collaboration with the LGBT+ Society. Therefore, I've demonstrated my ability to make good connections with student groups, sports, societies, student media, and community action groups, helping to raise, so I've aimed to be transparent and visible in this link, and I've also helped to raise over £700 for Copperfield as part of this Kent Girl Can Week in September. I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for my involvement in student groups at university, so sports clubs, societies, student media, and community action groups all help to bring students together. So, with that in mind, let's empower our students to deliver the best student experience possible and make real, lasting change across all of our campuses. If re-elected, I'll continue to work tirelessly on the campaigns that matter most to students, the Kent Sport Gym Membership Price Review, the creation of an on-campus sports facility at Medway that's fit for purpose, as well as bring new initiatives, new, fresh initiatives to support our student groups, such as the fundraising for contactless, bringing fundraising into the 21st century with a contactless payment system. So students, make sure you get your voice heard and your vote count next week, and go to the window to the win by re-electing me as your Vice President of Student Engagement.
Thank you, Emily. Katie, we're going to... Oh, love. Very good. Audience participation? Yeah, Katie, we're going to you.
Alrighty, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming, everyone for watching. This past year, I've been a part-time officer in the union, working closely with Sasha, VP Activities to launch the BAME network, ensuring that cultural societies are able to more easily network with each other. Furthermore, I've successfully run Black History Month with my fellow BME officer, Davino, as well as launched with Amalade, VP Welfare, a Liberation Month book club. I know what it means to represent students, and I believe I am the right person for the job. My main goals are to foster inclusivity within Team Kent, including societies, community action groups, and our student media, as well as fight for a monthly and facilities-only gym membership. And my most important goal is to give back to our student volunteers. I plan on implementing a reward scheme for volunteers in order to ensure that they feel seen by Kent Union year-round. My experience leading a smaller sports team, as well as working with societies through my role as BME officer, has given me the necessary tools and skills to properly take on the responsibilities this new role brings with it. Elect me as your VP Student Engagement and kick it with KG all year.
Thank you. And Adam, if you want to go next.
So, to summarise, I appreciate everyone here tonight for hosting this event, and KTV, Inquire, and the rest of the candidates. I just would like to say that basically I'm standing because I believe that I will represent society, sports, everyone equally in the role. So yeah, I don't have much of a concluding statement. That's basically it. I am who I am. I'm just here to represent who I think needs representing in the union. And so, who's the man? You's man.
Thank you, Adam. And Kirby, working with you.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you to everybody for coming tonight. I also want to say well done to KTV, my family over there, yeah, for doing all of this and getting the production looking great. My time as KTV entertainment coordinator has been a big reason for me running. I've collaborated with many sports groups, societies, and going through the Big Live Link, fundraising for 24 hours. Also doing shows that incorporate Medway and Canterbury societies to collaborate with one another. And this is something that I want to encourage throughout the whole through Kent Union and GK Union. I have, as I said, 6 points: collaboration, communication, appreciation, accessibility, marketing, and inclusivity. And these are 6 things that I really want to push forward. And
bring together the students at the university. And I just want to say thank you to everybody again, and to remember to connect with Kirby.
Thank you. Yeah. I'd just like to thank all the candidates for joining us here today and answering our questions. There were some tough ones in here, but you dealt with it well. So stay tuned for welfare coming up soon. But yeah, thank you. Please tell me.
On an average day, the role of the union president has a lot of different facets. So to some extent, I talk to students. To some extent, I'm also the chair of the board, so I might have to talk about governance and talk about our committees within the union, and also do things like board effectiveness as well. But on a day-to-day, it's a lot of meetings. So meeting internally with staff to work on campaigns, but also working with the university, and meeting with like the vice chancellor, deputy vice chancellors, and talking about key issues that students are facing. It's really important that you vote. For years, people have fought for the right to vote, so if you have the right, might as well use it. At the end of the day, us as full-time officers, we affect your student experience. We're here to represent you. We are here to make sure that your time here at Kent is best as it can be. So you need to make sure that you vote for the people that you believe will do that for you. Vote for the people who you think will represent you and represent your interests, and ensure that you get the student experience that you want and that you deserve. So please go out, vote, and make your voice heard. You can vote online or in the venue. So when voting opens, you can go onto our website, click vote, and vote for the people that you want. Or go into venue, there's some screens and some computers set up there. You can easily just vote there as well. Candidates, election time is always stressful. It's always a lot of work, long nights, long days, but stay in there, don't give up. It'll be worth it in the end. And even if you don't win, the experience is amazing. So give your best and do your best for students. My funniest memory from my election campaigns has to be creating campaign videos. Sometimes these videos can be a bit wacky, a bit silly. Mine tend to include dancing in them. So doing that with people in public, you'll sometimes see people like looking at you funny, but it also just allows you to mess around with your friends a little bit as well. First thing I did, obviously you're in the venue celebrating with your friends, you go through the interviews and stuff, but I think the first thing I did was tell my parents, because they were very proud of me. They were watching it live when it was on, and it was just great to kind of tell them that I did it, and it was my time, I guess. So yeah, just kind of making sure that I celebrated with my friends and family was important to me.
I'm Adam, and I'm running for student engagement. So my 3 manifesto points that are key to my campaign are better. I'm Adam, and I'm running for student engagement. So my 3 manifesto points that are key to my campaign are better individual support for each student.
First thing I did, obviously you're in the venue celebrating with your friends.
I'm Adam, and I'm running for student engagement. So my 3 manifesto points that are key to my campaign are better individual support for each student group, for a more streamlined funding applications, because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks sometimes to get funding done at the minute, and also to make a better interface for the union so that societies, groups and individuals can actually understand what their group or the union's doing without having to go into the building every time.
Hi guys, I'm KG and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement for 2019. So I have 6 manifesto points, but my 3 main manifesto points are implementing a reward scheme for volunteers, ensuring that we're giving back to the student volunteers that work so hard to make our socks and sports teams successful, creating a Kent Union app so that we have a central place to highlight society, sports teams, events, and things like that, as well as focusing on sustainability by getting rid of single-use plastics and working towards getting sustainable clothing in our SU outlets.
So my name's Emily Window and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement. My manifesto is centred around making student activities accessible, so continuing to work on the Kent Sport Gym membership price review, as well as creating a suitable sports provision in Medway, creating a Give It a Go programme for Canterbury students who don't want the commitment of being in a student group, developing a bigger societies varsity so we can continue to grow the event, bringing fundraising into the 21st century with contactless payment system, and finally helping student groups by creating a sustainable funding plan for expensive equipment.
Hello everyone, I'm Kavi and I'm running for your VP Student Engagement. So one thing I really want to do is do cross-collaboration between the Medway and Canterbury campus. So I want to do an inter-campus competition between the sports groups and societies. I also want us to improve the marketing that the societies are putting up for events. So I want us to do shout-outs on social media and ensure that they get the marketing that they deserve. I will also do improve the inclusivity and make sure that sports groups are able to get the memberships that they deserve.
Hi, I'm Emma and I'm running for Vice President for Welfare and Community. I plan on introducing greater education for healthier relationships on campus, as well as greater education on the effects social media can have on mental health and finding better ways to encourage better management of that. As well as that, I want greater union engagement with LGBT societies and BAME societies, greater engagement with Medway students on their campus, and a greener campus altogether. We have one earth, so I think we better.
Hi, my name is Omalade, your current Vice President of Welfare, and I'm running to be your next Vice President of Welfare and Community. So my top 3 manifesto points are working with local gambling charities in Kent to support students around counselling. Next is providing a toolkit for Medway and Canterbury students around their rights as tenants.
Okay.
And lastly, working with sexual health clinics in Canterbury and in Medway around advice and awareness. So, yeah.
No, I haven't got the thing in.
Where's it gone?
I've no idea. No one put it in.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's all like stuck. Okay. Oh my god, that's gonna fall off. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, I can hear you. It's gonna fall out though, not gonna lie to you. Okay, it's fine. I just won't move. Oh, tech is awful, isn't it? Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We on? Oh, I'm so sorry. We are on. My fault, my error. Okay, so we are now with the VPs running for welfare. So we're going to get them to do their opening statements. So if you want to start, Emma, and then. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for all coming. I think it's really, really great that you're all here and passionate about what's going on. So I'm Emma, and I am here running for Vice President for Welfare and Community, because as the president of Jewish Society this year, I often found working with lots of societies on campus that they didn't really feel like they were being represented and that their welfare needs weren't really being met. As well as that, I was surrounded by people throughout the year, and actually my first year as well, who faced a lot of issues and they just didn't receive the help they needed, and they didn't feel as if the union was supporting them in the way that they needed to be supported. So my campaign, I Have a Voice, I Will Be Heard, is a rally call to every single person to say that they do have a voice and it should be heard and it will be heard. And I want to be the representative that does that for everyone and make sure that they feel as if they have that representation there. So my manifesto covers various points, which I'm sure we'll all get into, but yeah.
Okay, and Amelade?
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to talk about my policies and debate some of the key issues I believe students are facing. So my name is Omalade, and I'm your current Vice President of Welfare, and I'm rerunning to be your Vice President of Welfare and Community. Last year, you elected me to be your voice on campus, and since I've been in office, I've not only been outspoken, but also I've taken actions on my words, but I've grown in this role. This time around, I am back and ready to continue the strong foundation I have built here at Kent, but equally, I'm also ready to put power back into your hands as students. From leading a strong liberation campaign, which is inclusive and strong for students and by students, reviewing university policies on sexual assault and sexual violence, introducing a gender-neutral facility in the venue, but also being elected onto NUS's Welfare Zone Committee to represent Kent Union's voice on a national level. I will ensure that students of Kent get the support that they need to not only learn here at Kent, but also have an enjoyable time while being here. Over the coming hour, you get to know more about me, but equally, I want to ensure that when you leave here, you can have your say with Omalade. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Okay, so we should move on to some questions then. We should start with some general questions first, and then we'll move on to some more specific things. So the first question is general, and it is, you both mentioned having a better relationship with Medway and providing more support for Medway students. So how do you plan to achieve this and guarantee funding for these programmes? Omalade, would you like to start?
So obviously, while being in my role, I've been able to work a lot with GK Union, but equally with Greenwich and also with SSW here. But before I actually became a sabbatical officer, I was also a student ambassador. I was a BME officer here, but I also came down and did a lot of Black History Month events. For me, one of the key things I actually highlighted in Medway is the fact that 40% of students here are commuting students, and equally when they come here, they don't really stay for too long, and I think it's because they don't have much offered for them on campus. And what I want to do, if I'm re-elected as Vice President of Welfare and Community, is to ensure that GK Union are providing events for them, but equally are providing support for them when they're here. Because a lot of these commuting students will leave university, won't really have the strong social groups because they're not spending too much time on campus. And what I want to ensure is that GK Union are providing support for them, but equally the university take into consideration their voice. So yeah.
Hi. So for the point for Medway, I actually was conversating with a counsellor who works on Medway to kind of come up with something that really will benefit Medway students. And so for me, just greater union communication and involvement with Medway was really the way to go. I think it's brilliant that so much funding was put in building the student hub, and it's brilliant and it's lovely, but I think if you don't have events there and you don't encourage people to come here, you know, it kind of misses the point of it being built. And from what, you know, the information that's been relayed onto me, there's definitely been a decrease in events at Medway, which has made people not want to stay here. I think to bring Medway alive and to encourage people to stay here, you have to give them a reason to stay, and therefore, you know, greater union involvement with the campus and everything, and kind of bringing things to the campus was really the way I went.
Thank you. Next question, it gestures to the poll done by Inquire again. So why do you, so you both highlight mental health as the main issue facing students at the University of Kent. We want to know why you feel this way and what you do to plan to combat this. So Emma, if you want to go first.
So actually on my manifesto, I have two main points that are, you know, they aim at mental health. The first one being greater education for healthy relationships. So one thing I found in the last couple of years of being at Kent and, you know, being president of a society and dealing with a lot of people, and actually issues that I dealt with myself that was quite upsetting, that there just wasn't really enough support there, was so healthy relationships being one of them. It doesn't matter from friendship to personal, like close to personal relationships, it's something that you deal with continuously, and at such a young age you are so vulnerable to falling into something that is very negative that can further affect your studies and your life, and you know that's what you base everything else on, like your further relationships on. So that was a massive point. Actually, studies show that 30% of undergraduates, and undergraduates specifically, have been or are currently in emotionally abusive relationships. And if you take in consideration how rare it is for people to admit that they are dealing with abuse, that is it's such a scary statistic. And there is support at campus for this, but it's never really communicated further. And so, you know, you don't feel very supported. And my second point would be, or is my manifesto, the connection between social media and negative mental health effects. So you just have to do one search to bring up the horrific amount of studies which shows the negative impact that social media can have. And the thing is, we aren't just going to get rid of social media. It's just not going to disappear anywhere. That's the truth of it. So campaigning and teaching students to manage their social media greater, because it is hard. I mean, especially I'd say women statistically deal with worse mental health from social media.
to kind of look at Instagram and when you're procrastinating and see all these people living brilliant lives, and you have all of this exam stress or work stress around you, and you feel like, why isn't your life like theirs? And it does create anxiety, and not even to mention the dopamine release that a like button gives you, which is so problematic on itself. So to campaign for both of these issues, and not just that, but to give better training to the support faculty, the support in the academic faculties. When talking to wellbeing myself at the Canterbury campus, the main thing that they... I'm just going to finish this. The main thing that they kind of stated was that it's not that the support in these academic faculties didn't mean well, it's that they just didn't have the correct training to be able to deal with the students that were coming to them. So you have a campaign, a big impact, and then you have a long-lasting effect by giving the right training to the support teams.
Thank you, Emma. Emiladi?
I was just going to say, I think for me, the two key points that I kind of highlighted from my manifesto is don't gamble with your education, but also secure the bag. And both of them actually look at more of the adverse issues that actually affect students' mental health. So nowadays, students are kind of affected by finances, but equally as well, we're having so much pressure on us in education because we're paying so much as well. That's affecting our mental health. For me, one of the things that I've actually noticed while being in this role is the fact that a lot of students are turning to gambling now to kind of meet their financial needs. So, and with gambling as well, it kind of affects their mental health for a long time as well. And what I want to do with that is trying to encourage students to not only get support through gambling charities, but also are supported through budgeting, but also through the right money management as well. For me, in terms of mental health, I think a lot of students tend to not always have self-care resources as well. And that's one of the things I've been looking at with student support and wellbeing in terms of how students can enhance their wellbeing, but equally are supported with the right mechanisms as well. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. So even though you guys agreed with the answer on the poll by inquiry with that point, there was a poll that you did not agree on, which was about whether or not the local community should be second to the needs of the students. So Emma, you said that you disagreed, and Emilada, you said that you agreed. So Emilada, would you like to explain why you agreed with the statement?
For me, I should equally say as well that students are part of the local community. So for me, I never want to create that us and them kind of divide. But equally as well, I am elected here to represent students, and students will always come first in my mind, and the needs of students will always come first in my mind, and I'll always make sure to tackle the issues of students, whether on Canterbury, but also in Medway as well. So that was kind of me as well. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Emma?
I should say that was a wrongly answered question. I corrected it with inquiry and everything.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Would you like to talk about why you agree?
No, it's fine. So I think that I think that Omalade actually makes a brilliant point when she says that students are a part of the community. I think that that's a very, very valid point to say, and it is true, because you can't just, you can't separate yourself from the place that you're in. There are actually really amazing community projects that do involve students. There's actually one that connects to one of my manifesto points to do with the environment. There's a really brilliant couple in Hills Place that are working together to bring students in community projects to make the student living place more environmentally friendly. So I think that even though obviously if I was to get in for VP for Welfare and Community, students obviously are going to be the first thing on my mind. It's not to say that they don't overlap and that there aren't places that students can go to be a part of the community, and it's not something that we can, community and student involvement isn't something that can be encouraged.
Okay, thank you. So going back to mental health, which you have both stressed the importance of in your manifestos, Inquire both gave you polls, and you both in the polls that Inquire gave you, you both had different ways of tackling it. So Emma, you answered that you'd want to run a mental health awareness campaign, and Emilada, you said that introducing welfare reps in clubs and societies. So I want to know why you think your idea is more effective than the other. So Emilada, do you want to start?
So I think for me, the reason why I chose that is because not only are you supporting student groups, but equally you're kind of getting them to have more peer-to-peer mentoring with students that they meet. For me, what I always tend to notice is that a lot of students are more likely to speak to their friends about their mental health as opposed to maybe someone from SSW, because they have that close relationship with them. And I think for us as Kent Uni, we should be able to provide resources for student groups to kind of support those within their societies, and that's why I chose that. But equally, it's more of a long-term kind of solution for me. So, I mean, it's great to do a campaign, and it's definitely important to do a campaign in terms of impact as well. But equally, we also have to think about what's more long term, and what can we put in place for students when they whenever that campaign finishes, what can we have in place for students to sort of have on their hand, like as a resource as well. So that's why I chose that.
So for me, kind of putting out a big campaign was something that was really important, and is something that is still really, really important to me. Because I think that it really just shows when you kind of shout out loud to students that they are being heard and that these issues are important. I should say that I did previously say as well that I would, make sure that the support the people who specialise in support, I should say correctly, in the academic faculties would have better training as well. I would say that bringing welfare reps into societies is a brilliant idea, but I think that when you look at how scary some mental illnesses can be, you have a massive high in personality disorders in women, and you have schizophrenia, and then you have things like ADHD, which is completely misunderstood. I think the idea that someone would want to go to a welfare rep within a society instead of a professional, it's very complicated. It's difficult to say that they would, and also to have the training for that would be very, very difficult. They're very complicated illnesses, and they need someone, that really knows what's going on.
I think one thing to highlight though is the fact that I don't think we're saying students should have the responsibility to take care of others. I think it's more of signposting, and I think that's what we equally as a union as well are doing in terms of when students do come to us. I always tend to signpost, and always signpost to the right services, those who are actually trained aren't actually practitioners. So I don't think it would actually give students the responsibility to, sit with someone and kind of counsel them. I think it's more of, these are the services that are on campus. If you meet a student who might be experiencing something, so you're clued on about what's going on so you're clued on about what the university has to offer, as opposed to, sitting with someone and sort of, counseling them. I don't think that's what we expect students to have. I think it's more just awareness about what services are offered. So.
Yes, you can respond.
Yeah. And then my response to that would be, once again, that sounds really brilliant. But then if you signpost someone, they're likely to go to like welfare support or something, and welfare alone has a waiting list. So you find a lot of people tend to go to support, and as I've just previously said, you find that a lot of people in support, and I know this sadly because I know a lot of people who have dealt with really, really horrible issues where there was really bad insensitivity there, and so they need the training, because that's where you're going to go. Because the truth is, accessing mental health services in the UK is just not easy, and I think anyone who's ever had to deal with that would know that. So just signposting someone to there is just kind of saying like, oh, let's go to a waiting list, instead of like maybe training someone in support and then like running a campaign so they feel heard, and in that campaign bringing in academic speakers who can promote prevention techniques and kind of giving people the information that they need so they feel like validated and included, and so they have coping mechanisms that they can use at least for that time until they can be seen.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have to go to a Facebook question now. So we've been asking users on Facebook to send in questions for the welfare debate. And one we've had is, what will the candidates do to support students with disabilities, health conditions, autism, specific learning difficulties and mental health conditions? Yeah. Sorry, it's a bit of a tongue twister. But yes. So Emma, would you like to go first on this one?
So I'd like to think that we've both kind of covered mental illness pretty well, like what I would do as support and everything for them with campaigns and kind of training and everything. When it comes to physical disabilities and more mental disabilities such as autism, I definitely, without a doubt, think that this is something that really needs to be covered. I come from a household with two physically disabled parents, so I've known for pretty much my entire life just how difficult it can be for people who are maybe a little slower than others, like physically, and that need things around them that really help them out. I think that both the Canterbury and Medway campuses really need to be assessed if they're very disability accessible from a physical point of view. And then when it comes to illnesses such as like autism, I think there really needs to be workshops on how people who deal with illnesses such as these, conditions, that was terrible wording, conditions such as these, to kind of deal with day-to-day life. I honestly, a few of my closest friends are autistic, and just being able to deal with social situations just boggles their mind. And I think if they had that kind of workshop to go to where they could kind of have someone sit them down and have the patience to talk to them about these things, it would really, really benefit them. But yeah, I think that major awareness for disabled students needs to be brought to Kent.
Yeah, and Emma, what's your response to the question?
So for me, this year, one of my priorities was actually accessibility. So looking at how accessible our university is, not just for students with disabilities, but for whole students. So this year, I worked alongside our Students with Disabilities officer, Lucy, but equally with one of our representatives, Philip, as well. And we actually hosted an open forum during Disabilities History Month, which was really positive as well, because you kind of got a lot of students who had disabilities or even had specific learning difficulties as well in a room discussing majority of the issues that they have on campus. And majority of the issues they tend to have is just the lack of respect from lecturers and seminar leaders when it comes to ILPs, but equally the lack of respect when it comes to even the library spaces as well, or even when it comes to supporting them as well. And I think after that, what I'd actually done is I'd sat down with the head of student support and wellbeing, and we discussed the ways that we can sort of support these students. And one of the things that that's come out of that is the fact that now they're discussing around how we can sort of review inclusive learning plans, how we can sort of review inclusive learning plans, but also how students can be more heard when it comes to inclusive learning plans. For me as well, in terms of supporting students with disabilities, one of the things I want to hopefully do next year is to work along with our Students with Disabilities Network, but equally our Autism Network as well, which is going to be introduced next year, and trying to make sure that those voices of those students within those networks are heard, not by just the union, but also by the university, and changes are being made, because these students, fair enough, they might have disabilities, but they also need to be equally heard as the other students as well on campus. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So, obviously, as a full-time officer, you're elected. Very important to keep up student engagement, which is in Kent Union often incredibly low. So what would you do to maximise student engagement to ensure Kent Union represents and reaches as many students as possible? Emily, would you like to go first?
So I think for me, as equally said in the previous debate by Emily, is the fact that this year our priority was student engagement. And I believe as a 5, we have done our very best to make sure that students are engaged. On my part, I think for me, I've led very inclusive, but also strong liberation campaign, as you can see from like the Black History Month, but also during Disabilities History Month, we had the photo campaign, which was really positively received by the union, but also by the university. But equally, the LGBT History Month, we ensured that student voices are heard, but also we're bringing down speakers, we're bringing down people who are speaking about issues that are happening in the 21st century, but students are engaging with it. I think for me, next year, what I want to make sure to do is to kind of top the work I've done this year and sort of make it bigger. I think for me, for Black History Month, for all the Liberation Months, but equally for just engagement of all students, I want to ensure that students who might not identify within liberation groups are also engaging within those history months, are engaging within those conversations. So, yeah.
Emma, response?
My response to that would be, it's one of my manifesto points is for there to be better union engagement with BAME societies and the LGBT society. I feel like the issue at Kent right now is that people just don't feel like what they're saying is being heard and that their feelings are being validated. And I've talked to quite a few of these groups. In particular, I have a very good relationship with the president of the LGBT society. She's really, really lovely. So when I went to her and I asked her, okay, well, what can we do? What can I do to make sure that your voice gets heard? And it was the same thing to the other respective societies that I did and individuals that I did talk to. And all the students, as well as those societies, did just say, like, I just feel as if the union, they mean well, but they just aren't exactly getting what we kind of stand for and what we want just yet. And so one thing I really want to introduce for in particular LGBT and BAME societies is sitting down with them maybe once or twice a term and kind of going through things that they want and they need and to give students the microphone and to say, okay, well, what can I do to make your experience better and for you to feel engaged? Because in general in society, we're on all high level of apathy, and there's a reason for that, and therefore you have to make people feel like they're being heard for them to want to be engaged in the first place.
Thank you. That's great. So another question in regards to welfare is period poverty is currently one of the most under-discussed yet prominent issues in Britain today. What would you do specifically to tackle this on campus? Like, do any of your policies relate to that? Emma, do you want to go first? Sorry. Yes, of course. Yeah. So period poverty is one of the most undiscussed yet prominent issues. Period. Sorry. Yeah. Period poverty. Yeah. So what would you do specifically to tackle this on campus? Yes. Yes. Such stuff.
I think that there needs to be
when it comes, I think people are scared about talking about periods still. I should say that. I think that no one really wants to have to kind of admit to the fact that it's so expensive to just be a woman on that one basis. So I think there needs to be almost like a campaign to bring people together to kind of be aware of this and aware of the issues surrounding period poverty. When it comes down to actually dealing with it, I would have to say I couldn't say more than just the campaign, and obviously maybe looking into funding and seeing if there's any charities that would be willing to work with the union. But I do understand the issue.
Emilade?
So for me, this is actually one of the key things I'm actually working on at the moment. So a few weeks ago, I was actually looking at how the council themselves can actually fund having sanitary products within public buildings, and for me as well, I've also been looking at how we can also get them on campus equally. As well as trying to make sure that not only are we providing sanitary products, but also we're providing advice around sexual health as well, but also about just awareness around it as well. So for me right now, where I'm at with the process is sort of emailing one of the counsellors who actually brought up period poverty in Canterbury, and sort of like speaking to her about whether we can actually look into funding sanitary products around public buildings, but also having it more spread out in Canterbury, and equally, if it does work out, we can have it in Medway. Because I actually saw that Scotland themselves actually agreed to have sanitary products now in all schools, and that's something that I kind of want to come to the UK. I don't know why we're so behind, because, you know, equally we call ourselves the Western 21st century. We should at least be able to provide free sanitary products for all women. So, yeah.
Great. Amazing, cool. So moving on from period poverty, let's go on to how the university is involved within welfare. So whilst at university, and they're not always acknowledged or taken into consideration by academic staff, which impacts the experience of these students. How would you work with the VP academic experience to ensure the university effectively implements ILPs fairly and consistently across schools?
So this is actually something I just said I was actually working on. So a lot of the meetings I sort of sit on actually discuss ILPs and discuss the implementation of ILPs. Majority of the issues that students tend to come to me about is the fact that the lecturers are not really listening to them. So, and also they have the wrong information on their ILPs. And equally is that it sort of makes it very frustrating being a student who has an ILP, because you're expressing your concern to your lecturer, but they're not really listening to you. For me, I hope to work with the VP experience to sort of sit down with lecturers and seminar leaders and sort of provide mythbusters around disabilities, but also mythbusters around what students actually need. This won't obviously be run by me. This will obviously be run by the chair of the networks, but also those students within the groups as well. And hopefully it's something we can sit down together and discuss the way forward. But yeah, just ideas. Yeah.
Okay, great. Emma, and you?
Yeah, I definitely feel as if greater education needs to be passed on to lecturers when it comes down to students with disabilities and the reasons why they do have ILPs. Quite a scary experience having to go in for an ILP, and obviously you wouldn't want anyone to feel different to anyone else because of it. I would also say further to that, I think there needs to be a greater awareness that students can get ILPs in the first place, and that like it can benefit you, and then to also make them aware that it's not necessarily going to negatively affect their education in the sense like they're going to be seen as different than anyone else, and actually there can be plenty of benefits of kind of going forward and opening up about the issues that they face. I think paired with the education for the lecturers, I really feel like that could benefit both sides.
Okay, great, thank you. So the cost of food, rent and bills continue to increase year on year, and more students need to get part-time jobs to survive. How will you help these students in need in your role of welfare? Emma, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Definitely, I think the housing process is unbelievably complicated, and as someone in second year and who's just done it, I think there's a lot of things that you just don't realise are going to happen. I think that greater education for housing rights and your rights and everything should go forward, obviously. But then further than that, I think that in first year, they need to start preparing students as they go forward for what they are going to have to deal with, because they are unbelievably unaware in first year of the process of housing. I think that greater support needs to be given for it, so they are aware. So no one wants to be in January and be told you have a £500 deposit and you don't realise that you need the money for it. And then further than that, as well as that, possibly deal with the council on the issues with housing and how much it costs and everything, because obviously if you have a student loan of only 4,500 and your rent is 4,000 and no one's supporting you, there's definitely going to be an issue behind that. So actually bringing funding to the university for students in that situation would be really helpful as well.
Just repeat the question
Yes,
again.
of course I can.
Yeah.
So let me just find it 1 second.
Yes.
That's all right. Rent and hire. Yep. So the cost of food, rent and bills continue to increase year on year, and more students need to get part-time jobs to survive. How will you help these students in need?
So obviously, one of the things actually I highlighted in my manifesto is the fact of how students are affected by the adverse of high living costs. So one of the things I actually highlighted in my manifesto as well is the fact that students are turning into different ways to kind of get money. So through gambling, through lucrative methods as well. And what I want to highlight as well is the fact that, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, so for me, what I want to ensure is the fact that students are not only equipped with money management, but also budgeting skills. And that's something that we're currently discussing at Kent Union as well, is how we can kind of help equip students before they get to that stage of they don't have any money left or they're sort of applying for access to learning fund. I think equally as well, I think it's very important to also make sure that students have the right information when it comes to housing. And there's also something I actually wrote in my manifesto around housing rights, because this is actually, last week I went to a workshop with NUS, and they were actually discussing how majority of the students who actually get housing don't always have the right information with them. 60% of them said they were not given the right information when they actually applied for housing. And by the end of the year, they then realized that they were meant to have all this information. And I think that's the key thing that we need to know as students. But equally as well, when we leave university, we're going to be getting houses as well. We need to be ensured that we have these life skills within us as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Melody. Obviously, as welfare officers, if you're elected, a big part of that is trust. So a big question for you guys in regards to, as opposed to one another, why should you be elected opposed to the others? What have you done in the past to represent students in areas of welfare? Why should you be elected and trusted by the fellow students? I mean, let's go first. Yeah.
I think for me, coming into this role has actually been a really huge experience for me. And I think in this role as well, I've been able to show students how I'm a trustworthy person, but equally I'm someone who has the best interest at heart. Mm-hmm. Not only have I worked with students with disabilities, but I've equally worked with BME students, I've equally worked with sports groups and societies, I've equally also worked with volunteering groups as well, while being a student, but also being in my role as well. I think for me, coming to this new year, I'm ready to kind of hit the ground running and get these things that I've written down in my manifesto done. Majority of the 6 points in my manifesto are key things that students are experiencing in the UK, all around the UK, not just at Kent. And I think for me, I want to ensure that students are supported here at Kent, but equally have the right tools when they leave Kent as well. Because I think at times we can kind of get stuck in our bubble of university and forget that there's the outside world, and students need to be equipped with the resources of how to protect their mental health, but equally how to manage their finances, how to rent out a house when they leave university, but equally just advice and awareness around sexual health as well. So, yeah.
Okay. And Emma, why do you think students should trust you as a welfare officer?
I think students should trust me as a welfare officer, as within the last couple of years, I have personally connected with lots of student groups, and I've heard them out on all of their issues. In the past year, as the Jewish Society president, I was the first Jewish Society president in 3 years to be able to get PALSOC to collab with JSOC, UKC Liberty collabed as well. It was crazy and it was unbelievable, and we were still so proud of it. And the way I did that was by going up to the Palestinian Solidarity Society on the Open Society Fair, and to straight up say to them, look, I don't want there to be tension. I want you guys to have voices. And that's very much my attitude when it comes to the people on campus, is that they need to have voices. I think that's very aware from the fact that my manifesto has pretty much completely been put together by me going around to different societies and different societies and different members of the university population, and putting my manifesto together through that. I think every single thing on my manifesto comes straight from the people who are going to vote for it, and I think that was my main aim, was to make sure people get heard. As my manifesto kind of catchphrase says, I have voice, I will be heard. That's unbelievably important for me, And I think that people should see that I feel a connection to that, and I want them to kind of have the microphone so they can like shout out for what they need and what they want, and for me to be able to support them through it.
Thank you, Emma. So we've got another question in from Facebook users at home. They want to know, what are you going to do to promote community action groups like Respect the No and mental health groups, because they work very hard but don't have much traction? So Emma, do you want to go first? Yeah, Respect the No and mental health groups.
Yeah, as I've previously said, with my manifesto points, so for Respect the No, majorly connects to healthier relationships and everything to do with that. I think that, you know, greater awareness needs to be brought to these groups. I think that they need greater support from the union so they can kind of have a greater outreach to other people. They're massive issues. I think once again it connects to student apathy as well. You need to make people feel like they're being heard, and you need to show people that these campaigns are having an effect. And definitely to do that, you need to be able to personally support these campaigns and to sit down with them and just say, okay, what do you guys need? What can we do for you? We'll push this for you as much as we possibly can.
I think for me, for Respect the No, because we actually worked collaboratively on so many projects this year, from sexual violence, sexual awareness week, but equally before that as well, they did the second year of Reclaim the Night. And I think for me, what I would want to ensure is that that continues to be something that happens every single year, but also gets bigger and better as well. And I think with the mental health groups as well, one thing I really want to ensure is the fact that not only are they engaged within Mental Health Awareness Week, but equally around Wellbeing Festival, but also are sitting into the meetings where policies are made around mental health and are able to kind of bring the student voice. And that's one thing I'm hoping to implement over the next coming months. So, yeah.
So if either one of you are elected, we want to know, will you prioritise lobbying the university to enhance student experience at Kent, rather than undertaking campaigns that simply further your own political agenda or a personal vanity projects? Would you go first?
I think for me, majority of the things I've actually written in my manifesto will enhance student experience. Not only, so I mentioned about student gambling, but I also mentioned about finances as well. And those are the things that are a burden on students and affect their student experience. And one of the things I want to ensure is the fact that the university are taking these issues into consideration, but also making sure that they have safeguards in place to support those students. And because equally, if you're struggling in terms of finances and you're struggling in terms of your mental health, there's no how you can have a good student experience. There's no how you can concentrate in classes. But if those barriers are removed, you can easily leave university with a first or a 2-1 or even a 2-2. So, yeah.
Okay. Emma? Yes, of course. So it's, if elected, will you prioritise lobbying the university to enhance the student experience at Kent, rather than undertaking campaigns that simply further your own political agenda or a personal vanity projects?
I mean, I would say, as I've kind of outwardly stressed, that so many of my campaigns and so many of my manifesto points, if not all of my manifesto points, come from me talking to the people on campus and making sure that, you know, I know how they feel. So I think that everything on my manifesto comes from a viewpoint of doing what is best for the students, because it's what they want. When it comes to lobbying the university, I really encourage it, and I think that you need to put pressure on the university as much as you possibly can for students to have the greatest experience. I mean, look at fine arts being cut. There was a massive expedition on campus today. I think possibly it's still up still, and I went there and I talked to loads of the people there. And it's just so sad what's going on. And I think what people often forget, the university to some extent is a business, and therefore you have to kind of play the game as they see it, and that means scrutinizing them. It means putting pressure on them. It means going up to them and saying, you know what, this is what the students need. This is what will benefit the student experience. At the end of the day, you are at university to have a good time, but you're also paying $9,250 a year for a degree. If the university can simply just cut it like that, you know, the union is supposed to step in there for you to say, no, this isn't appropriate. So, you know, I think that the points on my manifesto, because they come from what, you know, the people want on the campus, the ones the people I've gone and talked to, they do represent. I don't think it's a political agenda or personal vein or anything, but equally, you do have to pressure the university into things, and you do have to scrutinize them to get things done. That's how the system works, and it's how you're going to get results out of it.
Thank you. So that's the end of the questions from me, but now we're going to go to audience questions, see if we can open up the floor and anyone has anything they want to ask. Anyone? Any questions from the audience? Yep, Aaron, yep.
My question is, obviously, following the democracy review, all the roles have changed this year, and the full title of the role is welfare and community. And I want to know, what does that mean to you as individuals?
Yeah, just to reiterate the question to the audience at home, just in case they couldn't hear it, Aaron's asked, what does the question welfare and community mean to you guys as running for the role?
I think for me, community is actually quite a good aspect of including within the role. For me, it's already been an aspect of my role. I guess it was just a name being added, to be honest. And I think for me, it means working with a local council, but also equally working with students off campus as well in terms of supporting them. Equally, it also means ensuring that we have a strong community while on campus as well, not just for all students, but also students who are within liberation groups. And as Aaron mentioned about the democracy review as well, with that also includes networks coming in. I think for that, you're also able to build a community for students, not just liberation students, but for students with faith, students who care about the environment, but also societies as well. And I think going to the coming year, we're hoping to build more of a stronger community on campus, but also off campus. And I'm hoping that I can see that through. So, yeah.
Okay, Emma?
Welfare and community means bringing together the students and community, and obviously students on campus, and making sure that their welfare is taken into consideration, and obviously working with all the organisations around that. But further than that, being a VP for welfare and community is sitting down with students and saying, this isn't just a role. I genuinely care. I have been there. I know people that have been there, and I will give you this hypothetical, this imaginary microphone, and I will give you this voice, and you will be heard, and every single point that you genuinely feel, will be taken into consideration, and it will be validated. It's got to be more than just my role is this, and this. Welfare and community to me is it's just caring and having the pure humility to say that I might not know all of your struggles, but I will be there for every single one of them, and I will listen to every single one of them, and I will support you through all of them, because that is what I am here for.
Okay, great, thank you. So we've received some questions from Facebook again. I'm just going to go onto my phone, not to be rude, generally getting up questions. Here we go. So a question we have received is, oh, that's one we've already read. KTV, the questions aren't sending through. It's only sent the old one. No, sorry. Here it is. Found it. All good. So it says, I and many others feel the union is too political. Issues like safe space, deplatforming, Brexit always benefit one group / set of views over another if you get involved, and can leave people feeling unwelcome. Whilst this is a student election, how dedicated are you, if not at all, to being political? And further, do you agree the union to dedicate its policies to fairness and mutual justice like the university does itself? Emma, would you like to start?
I am such a strong believer in healthy debate and discussion, and having people kind of stand up and give out academic speech, and I know because I know so many people who have said the same thing to me, that they do definitely feel as if the union kind of swings in one political direction, and obviously because statistically a lot of younger people swing in the same direction, it's objectively seen as acceptable. The truth is, it leads people kind of feeling very kind of left out on their own, and I don't think that's acceptable. And I think that is very important to look at every single different situation, whether that's political events happening in the news, or speakers coming in, or this or that, or anything that's very political, on a very separate basis on each event, and to assess that and to see how it's going to benefit the university and the students, or whether it's not going to benefit the university and the students, but definitely to see everyone as equal, and to see the base platform as neutral, and to put the students before anything, including political and gender. All the same, it's very, very important that you keep up to date with what's going on in the world, because it does affect you. I just think that the university needs to be, more aware of what all of the students want, instead of just one specific side.
Okay,
I think for me, just to kind of make it clear the fact that we're elected officers, so naturally we're also political leaders as well. And I think one of the things that they mentioned in the question was around Brexit. That's also something that will equally affect students, not only affect Erasmus students, but also equally support to study as well. And I think for me, those are matters that we as officers should be at the forefront of, defending students within those matters, whether it's around safe space, whether it's around even speakers as well who might have controversial views, but equally as well making sure that students are heard within the political news as well. So equally around Brexit, we're sort of, obviously there's been so many discussions around it as well, and I think what's missing is the student voice, students' priorities, the future of the future the needs of the future generation. And I think that's what we as officers should be at the forefront of. We should be taking on national issues. We should be making sure that students' voices are heard within those things. We should be working with NUS as well to ensure that they are lobbying the government to ensure that students are taken into consideration when it comes to political matters. So, yeah.
Okay, nice. Yes, of course, you can say that.
I just want to add to that, actually, kind of from my viewpoint and from all the people that I have talked to and stuff about this, that if anything, I should say I completely agree that political matters that really can affect, you know, future generations and you and your future and etc. should be concentrated on. I think if anything, what the union kind of needs to do now, and what, you know, I would do if I was elected, is to give out both sides, to have students kind of give out their viewpoints on both sides, and then to let the people, like the students on campus who are seeing this, make up their own mind, because that way, you know, they won't feel as if there's some sort of bias kind of pressuring them into a certain direction. It will just come from them and it will feel more democratic.
Would you like to respond?
I mean, I was just going to say that this year we had 200 students vote that the uni should take a stance on Brexit, which was the people's vote. And over 33 of us went to London to march along with 7,000 people in the UK to say that we wanted more of a voice on the Brexit. We wanted more of a voice on the last Brexit deal. That's us taking students' voices and representing it. And I think that's what we should do as officers. So I do understand what you mean about making sure to consult students, and that's what we are doing as student union officers through Change It, through our open forums, through our AGMs as well. And we always welcome student feedback, and we'll always make sure to represent students' views. And we've made sure to do that this year as well, through Brexit, whether through even the environment, whether even through me opening up forums for students with disabilities, opening up forums for Black students as well around Black History Month. And we've seen how the open forum that happened 2 years ago has renewed Black History Month over the past 2 years. And yeah.
Yes. Sadly, we have to end it there and go to our closing statements, but thank you for joining us anyway. Omolade, would you like to start with your closing statement?
Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate all of you being here. I'm just going to talk about why you should re-elect me as your Vice President of Welfare and Community. Re-electing me will mean you have someone who has the interest of all students at heart with actions to back it up. Re-electing me will mean putting provisions in place to support students not only managing their finances, but offer support and counselling to those who experience the effects of high living costs. Re-electing me will mean students will become better aware of their rights as tenants and can equally protect themselves against rogue landlords, poor accommodation quality, and get value for their money. Re-electing me will mean Medway students have a voice on this campus, but equally across the community. And actions are taken to ensure that they have the best experience here at Kent. But most importantly, re-electing me will mean you have someone who has first-hand experience and is ready and equipped to hit the ground running, to tackle issues and implement key changes which are relevant to students. Remember, voting opens on the 4th to the 8th of March, and I hope you can have your say with Omolade.
Thank you, Omolade. Emma, if we go to you for your closing statement.
Yes. Okay. So my closing statement. Okay. I think that every single person here should vote me in for Vice President for Welfare and Community, because by doing that you bring someone in who has experienced the things that you have experienced and has put together a manifesto based on the views and the feedback that she has had from the individuals on campus. Further than that, I will give a voice to every single person that does want to be heard. That is the premise of my campaign. I have a voice, I will be heard. It is a rally call to make sure that every single person doesn't feel like they aren't, to make sure every single person does feel like they are being represented, and that is so unbelievably important. Further than that, I will bring issues to light on campus that so far have been ignored, and to give support to all student groups, as well as make the campus more environmentally friendly, as was mentioned on my manifesto. We have one Earth. We need to look after it. That's really the end of that. And remember, like I said before, I have a voice. I will be heard. Good leaders don't just gain followers. They promote people to be leaders themselves, and to show leadership qualities, and to stand up for what's right. And I know without a doubt, if I'm the person in for VP for welfare and community, I will do that 110%, because I only have everyone's interest at the deepest part of my heart. So as Molade said, voting opens 4th to the 8th of March. Remember to get your vote in. Democracy matters, okay? And it's a very complicated voting system, so we need the votes in, but definitely get there and have your voice heard. It's so unbelievably important. Make a change.
Thank you, both of you, for joining me here today and answering our questions that we had for you. So that's the end of the welfare debate. We're going to cut back to studio to watch some of the post-discussion, but thank you so much for joining us, and keep watching. Well done. Thank you. Very well answered. Some very tough questions in there, especially.
On an average day, the role of the union president has a lot of different facets. So to some extent, I talk to students. To some extent, I'm also the chair of the board, so I might have to talk about governance and talk about our committees within the union, and also do things like board effectiveness as well. But on a day-to-day, it's a lot of meetings. So meeting internally with staff to work on campaigns, but also working with the university, and meeting with like the vice chancellor, deputy vice chancellors, and talking about key issues that students are facing.
Welcome back to the KTV studio here at Canterbury. Hopefully you enjoyed checking out all the action going on over at the Medway campus. I think it was super exciting to hear what the candidates had to say. Like we said before, they got grilled, they got asked some tough questions, questions firing in from social media and from the people there as well. So I think it's super interesting to kind of hear their responses almost in real time to that sort of thing.
Yes, they did do really quite well, and each candidate had really good points and really a good succinct answer that was quite clear. Because sometimes, you know, if you don't really know how to answer a question, you start faffing and, you know, mumbling. But they knew what they wanted to say, and they had a clear sort of thought track.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was really good to kind of, you know, because we can have a look at the manifestos and we can interpret it in our own ways. But it's always really helpful to kind of see what they want to convey by those manifestos.
And get them to talk about it, and you get to see the passion behind it. Because when they talk about it, it's different. You see it written down on a page, it's just words. But when you see them actually talking about the stuff they're doing and the stuff that they want to do, you can kind of see whether they're genuine or not, or whether they actually, you know, really believe in what they're doing.
Exactly.
And I felt like the candidates were pretty strong on all of their points.
Definitely. And I feel like this year it's probably one of the strongest years that I have seen, because everyone is they know what they want to do, and the points that they've made are things that, for example, housing. I know that this comes up maybe every year, but it was a very sort of, no, there's a real issue and there is really something that we need to do about it. Same thing with welfare, with the education, with relationships and things like that. So people have picked up on genuine issues that might have kind of been overlooked by other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now people are like, no, there are some issues that we're facing. Things like gambling. I didn't know that there was a gambling issue, that students were facing that sort of issue. But people have genuinely really done their research, it feels like, and have seen issues that people hadn't, you know, kind of maybe have overlooked. And they're like, no, this is a problem, and it's becoming a growing problem, and we need to fix it.
And on the flip side, with student engagement, not just welfare, you see the recurring issue of the Kent Sport Gym membership.
Yes.
It is a huge problem. You know, it is quite expensive to get involved with sport, and that kind of affects how much the union can really do, because they can make memberships as accessible as possible for Kent Union's societies and sports teams. But if the gym membership's prohibiting people from joining, there's not a lot they can do about that.
Yes.
And I know Emily Window herself has done a lot of work this year, and all of the candidates talked about how they want to continue on the work and continue on the work that Emily's put in already, doing the surveys and getting over to 2,000 responses to literally kind of change the face of gym memberships, hopefully, and make it so much easier for people to get involved with facilities-only memberships, potentially, to really allow everybody to get involved with sports. I know I've personally got friends who didn't join football in their first year because it's the membership fee plus £200 for a gym membership.
It's very expensive. I mean, I've been put off by joining any sort of sports societies because it's just like, well, you know, you have to make it, there's a lot of fees included in university. Books are expensive. Like, you have to get bus passes and things like that. And then you're like, well, can I really afford to do that? And then a lot of people get discouraged by it. So.
Yeah, sport kind of doesn't become a priority in societies.
Yes.
Especially if money is an issue, then the first thing to go is the extracurriculars, so things like that. So it is tough, and I think we got to see, you know, the candidates really talk about how awesome they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And how awesome their points are. But now we are going to go to a video back to talking about the student engagement manifestos.
Adam, and I'm running for student engagement. So my 3 manifesto points that are key to my campaign are better individual support for each student group, for a more streamlined funding applications because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks sometimes to get funding done at the minute, and also to make a better interface for the union so that societies, groups and individuals can actually understand what their group or the union's doing without having to go into the building every time.
Hi guys, I'm KG and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement for 2019. So I have 6 manifesto points, but my 3 main manifesto points are implementing a reward scheme for volunteers, ensuring that we're giving back to the student volunteers that work so hard to make our socks and sports teams successful, creating a Kent Union app so that we have a central place to highlight societies, sports teams, events, and things like that, as well as focusing on sustainability by getting rid of single-use plastics and working towards getting sustainable clothing in our SU outlets.
So my name's Emily Window and I'm running for Vice President Student Engagement. My manifesto is centred around making student activities accessible, so continuing to work on the Kent Sport Gym membership price review, as well as creating a suitable sports provision in Medway, creating a Give It a Go programme for Canterbury students who don't want the commitment of being in a student group, developing a bigger societies varsity so we can continue to grow the event, bringing fundraising into the 21st century with contactless payment system, and finally helping student groups by creating a sustainable funding plan for expensive equipment.
Hello everyone, I'm Kabi and I'm running for your VP Student Engagement. So one thing I really want to do is do cross-collaboration between the Medway and Canterbury campus. So I want to do an inter-campus competition between the sports groups and societies. I also want us to improve the marketing that the societies are putting up for events. So I want us to do shout-outs on social media and ensure that they get the marketing that they deserve. I will also do improve the inclusivity and make sure that sports groups are able to get the memberships that they deserve.
Awesome, so we're back. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about manifestos. Like we said, we can talk about it all we like, but it pays to hear it from the candidates themselves, to actually hear what they're passionate about, what their 3 main points are for each of them, and what they care about most.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing for us to kind of look at it and scrutinise it, but it's always good to see what they want to say and their view on it. So
yeah, so we talked quite a lot about student engagement tonight.
We did.
Being involved with student media, that's kind of our thing.
Yeah.
But there's lots to be said about welfare candidates, especially after question time.
Welfare is a really big thing that sometimes people tend to overlook because they're more worried about activities and sports and things like that. But welfare is a really big key part because everyone is either affected by some sort of well-being issue or knows someone who is. So it's good to be informed about what help there is on campus, what if there is something that you need, then it's always good to know that you have that support available. So the welfare VP is really important because they're the ones who allow that support to be provided, and so you need to be kind of aware of what is out there.
Yeah, and one facet of that is mental health, which has become huge in recent years. You know, not that it's grown any more prevalent, but that people are talking about it now, and that's super important.
It is.
And the fact that, you know, you get these charities spring up like Mind who do amazing work across the country, and that universities need to step up and provide more support.
Yeah.
Because I think I had a statistic, like 90% maybe of students experience some sort of mental health problem in their time at university.
Exactly.
That might be completely pulled out of thin air. But it's a high figure, and that's terrifying. And it's the welfare VP's job to help that happen and make sure that university does what they need to do. It's super important.
Yeah, no, for sure. I completely agree with you. And on that note, I really enjoyed listening to Emma's point on the education on relationships, and that's not just like close relationships or anything like that, but just relationships in general with people and how to, you know, overcome and resolve issues that you may have with someone, either whether it's from your course or societies or friendships. So I really like the fact that she's kind of pushing this out there and just being like, we need to be aware because we are really young and we are making new relationships at university. But,
it's a very overlooked issue.
Exactly.
It's 100% super overlooked.
Yeah.
And so, without further ado, we've looked a lot at student engagement, and we're now going to go to a video to talk about the welfare and community candidates and their manifestos.
Hi, I'm Emma and I'm running for Vice President for Welfare and Community. I plan on introducing greater education for healthier relationships on campus, as well as greater education on the effects social media can have on mental health and finding better ways to
Oh dear. Well, this is great.
Okay, so we're back. Sorry about that, guys. We are having technical difficulties.
Yeah.
But we're going to attempt to replay that for you. Make sure you go over the welfare and community manifestos. Make sure you get a good chance to have a look at those again.
Hi, I'm Emma and I'm running for Vice President for Welfare and Community. I plan on introducing greater education for healthier relationships on campus, as well as greater education on the effects social media can have on mental health and finding better ways to encourage better management of that. As well as that, I want greater union engagement with LGBT societies and BAME societies, greater engagement with Medway students on their campus, and a greener campus altogether. We have one Earth, so I think we better look after it.
Hi, my name is Omalade, your current Vice President of Welfare, and I'm running to be your next Vice President of Welfare and Community. So my top 3 manifesto points are working with local gambling charities in Kent to support students around counselling. Next is providing a toolkit for Medway and Canterbury students around their rights as tenants. And lastly, working with sexual health clinics in Canterbury and in Medway around advice and awareness. So yeah.
So there you have it. There's your welfare candidates once again. Those that you just saw at question time. If you missed it, we're going to run through some of the manifesto points again for you. You've just seen the video. And we're going to dive into what we think about the manifesto points, how it's all gone down this evening, and what they were talking about. So, Noor, let's talk about Omalade first.
Yes, let's do that. So obviously we know that she is rerunning for her current position.
Yeah.
She was the, if I'm not wrong, the year before she was the BAME officer.
Yeah,
so she has had quite a lot of involvement with the union, and it shows because, you know, she's a very confident speaker. She's always seemed quite confident, and she's the sort of person that, you know, she knows what she wants, and she does try to kind of do it and kind of get things done. But
yeah, which is exactly what you want in a sabbatical officer.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it's nice because she's done things like the gender neutral toilets,
Yes.
which isn't an issue that affects all of us, but it's an issue that affects some people.
Some people.
And it's nice to know that, you know, those groups are being represented.
Exactly.
She renewed Black History Month, which saw a dip in previous years.
Yes.
And she jumped on that, really spearheaded that going through in 2018 and making it an October to remember.
Exactly.
And she's part of the NUS Welfare Zone Committee, which, you know, whether or not you know a lot about that, but it is like a really awesome, you know, it's an experience, and it's something that she's representing Kent Union at a bigger level, like a national level,
Yes.
which is super important.
No, it's really good to hear. I mean, all of this is all good, but, you know, people do need to vote.
They do.
And so that will be opening on the 4th of March.
The 4th of March is the big day where voting starts.
Yes.
That's literally Monday. That's crazy, right?
February's gone by so quickly.
February has gone by super
February
quickly.
has just
We're into
flown by.
election season. This is it. We're
It's
going
it,
to see
yeah.
the campaign. We're going to see them on the plaza handing out flyers,
Yeah.
but not Emma Sampson if she's sticking
Hopefully,
to her environmental
please stay
manifesto.
green.
And we're going to see the plaza littered with flyers, with people hanging up bed sheets painted with their election manifestos. And you're going to be able to vote in the venue every single day, I believe, from like either 9 or 10 until 5 p.m.
Yes.
Literally live with your student card. Couldn't take more than a couple of minutes. And it's important because it decides kind of what gets done in the union. It decides how to shape the union.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you can vote either in venue, you can vote online. I think that's the only way to do it. There's like, literally, you can either go there in person and then get a freebie, or you can just stay, lie in your bed, and I mean, you're probably most people are either procrastinating or doing something. So it literally takes like a few minutes.
Yeah, I still stand by the idea that you can go in multiple times, vote for one role on the Monday, get your freebie from Monday, go back on Tuesday. You can do each of the 5 on a different day and get a freebie every single day, which is amazing. That is like my life hack tip to everybody watching out there. Vote for a separate one on each day. You get popcorn, get sweets, get maybe a Nando's voucher if they're doing them this year. Just make the most of the system, make the most of the free stuff coming your way, especially if it's food.
I'm like mind blown.
Mind blown, right?
At that, because I didn't even think about it.
Ultimate life hack.
So clever. I will definitely be doing that.
Yeah, you can get popcorn 5 times if they do popcorn every day.
It's fine, the perfect library snack.
Yeah, or if you're going to the cinema, you never pay for your own snacks.
Very clever.
But I think, yeah, this candidate question time has kind of shown that the candidates are all super passionate about what they do.
Yes,
and all about slightly
definitely.
different things. Like we said before, there's the crossover for student engagement with the Kent sports stuff that Emily's been spearheading this year, and the others all want to follow up on, obviously. And then with welfare, it's just generally that they want to look after students. They want to cover all their bases and look after the amazing student groups we have and the amazing range of diversity, and they want to keep championing that and representing that.
No, it's great to see how passionate they are, and I mean, these are just the 2 categories of the other categories that we have, 5 categories, and we'll be seeing another candidate debate on Thursday.
We've got candidate question time, I believe, for Vice President Academic Experience and Vice President Postgrad Experience. The new role, the brand new, never before seen, exciting role that's going to be a big deal. And that's going to be candidate question time on Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And then on Friday at 5:30 again, it's going to be the union president, the big role.
Yes. So we will be looking forward to hearing what they have to say. I'm sure that everyone is going to be as motivated as these 2 categories were.
But yeah, I think
that's it from
aside
us,
from that is it from us here at KTV in the Canterbury studio. Thanks to our Medway team for getting all the way out there, putting in the work to bring you the footage all the way from candidate question time. Hope you enjoyed seeing it.
Yes.
And I think we did it too. We enjoyed learning more about the candidates, chatting about it. We spent our evening literally just rambling on about our opinions on the candidates.
It's been great.
We are going to wrap it up. Like we said, you can go and watch candidate question time for the next 2 candidates on Thursday at 5:30 p.m, starting again just like today. And then on Friday, it's Union President from 5:30 p.m. But thank you very much for tuning in. I've been Kieran.
I've been Noor, and we will see you on Thursday.
Thanks for watching, guys.